You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Typhoon Hinnamnor is an extremely powerful storm right now, with winds along the threshold of Category 5 status. On our latest analysis, well, kind of varies. We kind of have my numbers, which we have here on the screen, and some of our team suggesting that it is still a Category 5. Certainly was earlier, and a really impressive storm it is turning out to be. At times we expected it, of course, when the forecasts first came in, when it was rapidly intensifying much earlier on. But here we are right now, a few more days down the line, and it is passing very close to the Daito Islands, which are the ones that are visible on the screen. And you can still notice just how rather small this storm is, relatively speaking, because Okinawa, up towards the Umami Islands, still aren't really feeling it at this moment, but they certainly will soon. This is Force 13 Live. We have coverage on this storm, and we expect to go for quite a while here during the morning hours local time in Japan. My name is Nathan Foy here in the studio. Hello, it's nice to be back once again, and I'm joined by my rather expansive team today. We have Ethan, Joey, Gizmo, Havoc, Patrick, Soham, Taniel, and what shall I call you?
Weatherman Akshay.
Weatherman Akshay. You wanted me to go the whole lot with your name there.
Very good. How are we doing? Good morning, Japan.
Yes, as good as
Good morning, man. That's
possibly
very nice.
be. But first, let's go to Ethan, who's been monitoring this storm for quite a while and was probably the first person to forecast a Category 5 earlier on in its life. Ethan.
Yeah, I mean, this storm is, it's looking kind of decent still. Obviously, I would suggest that it probably still is a Category 5, but I mean, barely, based on surface observations. But this storm right now is going to undergo an Eyewall replacement cycle. Although, it is worth noting that this storm really only has, looking at its current forecast, it looks to be entering a stall in around 36 hours from now. So looks to be that it might have some room to gain some intensity before it goes into that stall again, if it completes its Eyewall replacement cycle very quickly. So there is still some room for this to become a Category 5 again. And then it could even gain some intensity as it goes throughout that stall, maybe in the first 12 to 24 hours. Let's not forget that those conditions down there are still favorable, and it has to use up those conditions. And it could still use those conditions to gain another peak intensity, maybe even stronger than what it's already gotten to. I know that it probably peaked around 175 miles per hour earlier today. We'll have to wait and see if it gets stronger, but as of right now, this is just under the threshold, or just about a Category 5, 155, 160 miles per hour. Doesn't really make that much of a difference. But as far as Category 5s go up here, this is actually quite small. Joint Typhoon Warning Center warning just came out here.
Oh.
I'm just going to pull up the wind field data. There is some big news, actually. I'll get to that here in a moment. But looks like that right now they actually have that's 13W, which is just formed. Okay. But regarding the Jtwc's wind field, they actually have only the tropical storm wind field at max distance, only out to 70 nautical miles. That's tiny for West Pacific.
Compact yet strong.
But yeah, of course, they are going with finally a intensity of 160 miles per hour. They do forecast this system to weaken down to a Category 4 pretty much imminently. and that they do forecast it to downgrade as it exits the stall down to a high-end Category 2, but as it makes that turn northward, the Day 5 point is now up to a low-end Category 4 now on the Saffir-Simpson scale. That's brand new, up to Category 4 now at Day 5. So re-strengthening as it moves northward seems quite likely.
Yeah. Here is a Jtwc Cone. Is that the latest one, Ethan, that we're looking at?
Let me pull up the screen here.
I think it is.
Yes, that's the latest one, yes.
So let me just move that. There it is. That last dot there is back to Category 4 status again. Fascinating to see exactly what's going to happen with this storm. JTWC have been fairly consistent forecasting this sort of hook track as it moves back up. GFS has been rather consistent on a looping track and actually takes it quite a bit further south and does a loop-the-loop and then back up towards the north. What is the general model consensus right now, do we know?
Well, the general model consensus actually has been pushing still southwest for this stall, actually. So it's been pushing it further and further and further away from Okinawa and closer and closer and closer to Taiwan.
May I interject? If may I interject?
So, yes.
News is coming in that monthly records for the wind speed and gusts has been broken in Kitadaito Island, which is the island which Hinnomnor's Eyewall is passing just to the north of. So it set a new sustained wind speed record of 135 kilometers per hour and a new wind gust world record of 174.2 kilometers per hour. Both of these have been broken. The old record was 116.2 in 2014 and 170.3 in 2014 respectively.
So are those just wind gusts just for that island?
Yep.
Wind gusts and wind speed both, and sustained wind speeds both.
Oh wow, that's quite impressive. And they're not even getting the full force of the Eyewall either. They're only
the Eyewall just missed to the north.
So I mean, it's good that we're getting this kind of surface observations.
Now
they got slain by the outer Eyewall.
Now we know that we've got this on radar as well. Does anyone have that radar imagery? It'd be great if we could get that on our screen. I don't, sadly.
I can try on radar scope. I know that they do have radar in Japan. So let's see. Let's go the other way.
Let's have a look.
See what we can see. It is up. Oh, there it is.
There it is.
There's our Typhoon.
Good. Looks really impressive there.
We can loop it here, and I can also do dual pane here with velocity.
Velocity.
And, obviously, it's going to jump around because it was down earlier today.
Oh, was it?
But yes, it was down earlier today. But I'll pause on the latest frame here, and there is something worth noting. You can see right here is the incredibly strong Eyewall right now, still holding on pretty strong. But you can notice around the storm here, a secondary Eyewall developing. That is a clear indication that an Eyewall replacement cycle is going to occur in the next 24 hours, and that will induce some weakening as the storm passes. Oh, come on, zoom out. There we go. As the storm passes off towards the southwest. Now, when it gets down here into this area, it could move very slowly, but the question is, how long does it stall for? Does it stall for not long? Does it stall for very long? And you also have to consider how fast it's moving, because if this thing moves at a pace like I know that I was researching earlier that the Jtwc was suggesting a movement speed around 2 to 3 miles per hour. If it moves even faster than that, it might not even up over the waters that much. But if it moves slower than that, it waters even more. There's a lot of questions going into the stall and the intensity of the storm, and potentially who could change impacts for regions that remain unanswered right now.
This is so small, though. When you look at the core of the storm on radar there, Ethan, that's about a diameter of 100 miles or maybe a little more.
I mean, I can get like a diameter here.
Depends where you want to measure from.
So we'll just get the width of the storm. That's 240 miles right there, from band to band, and that's not even getting the full length of the storm. I just want to let's see. Yeah, it's about as big as Taiwan is. That's not really that big as far as Pacific typhoons go, man. I can zoom out even more. And look,
Very small.
it's tiny.
For now.
Uh,
Yeah, for now. That's a big key word, because
For
I
now.
should,
Nathan,
should
if
probably
you-
interject
Yes.
again. Sorry for the Kita Daito Airport reported a peak pressure of 963.8 millibars
All right.
And
at closest approach.
963, and that is approximately 20 miles from the eye.
Yeah,
which-
if you were
which
to do
island is it
Schloemer on the Kita Daito Airport.
Is it the northern island or the southern island?
Yeah, the northern island.
Not
Okay,
20
and-
miles. That's 20 kilometers.
Did I say miles?
If you
Yeah, 20 kilometers.
Okay, where is this airport on
23
that island?
kilometers.
That's my next question.
What's that?
Where is this airport on this island, Soham?
Yeah, I didn't know they had an airport.
I
I didn't know he
believe
was
this
just-
is
Let's just read out this. Kita Airport recorded 963.8 millibar with 68 knots 10-minute winds, 94 knot gust, 23 kilometers from the center, within the MOATs. Minami
see it's on
Daito
the-
also report hurricane force winds at 976.5 millibar at 2030 C from JMA website.
And that there is also the voice of Kenneth, who is also on our analyst team. Welcome aboard to you as well. There's a lot of people here wanting to get their say in our room here, and also plenty going on in chat as well. We'll try and take your questions whilst you're on the air. They are quite important to us. So start your message with Force 13 all in text. Where should we go to next? Let's have a
I have a
look
question for you, quick, Nathan.
here. Okay.
Did you say that the island is 20 miles away?
About 20 kilometers it was.
It is actually 20 miles away, actually.
What?
Miles.
You sure?
I've got it
The
mentioned right here.
extrapolation, well, the extrapolation result will tell you everything, where 20 miles isn't reasonable. You see the 960 something, right?
Well, either way,
963.8.
it's a very small distance, though.
Hmm.
Yeah, you
It
need
sure
to
is.
be precise.
But Nathan, I was just talking about something, and could you bring up on the stream the Jtwc Cone by chance?
Yeah, we had that a moment ago. Let's just bring that back here. That latest Jtwc Cone, which is huge, by the way.
Yeah, but look at the wind field
Ugh.
once you get towards day 4 and 5. This typhoon is going to grow massively when it goes out of this stall, and I mean
Gonna go
massively.
bonkers.
because
So-
Wow.
So I mean,
Yeah,
I
That's
remember
all about momentum.
I remember looking 24 hours ago, and Taiwan was barely within the tropical storm force wind field, and look at it now, well within it.
Put it into
in the middle of it.
Put it into actual numbers. Its current highest radius is 70 nautical miles of tropical storm force winds. On the forecast there, that last point, it's 250 nautical miles, so it's 3.5 times larger at the end.
When you
That's
have
this-
more,
Crazy.
when you have to store, and the sea surface temperature drop, the upwelling leads to weakening. The weakening will lead to, well, despite weakening, the side will actually continue to broaden, and knows there's already currently an outer replacement cycle, which already is broadening the system well, experience tells me
it's basically
it's like double. Firstly, double, and then
I
when you
think,
store and weaken, you further double.
I think an easier analogy for this would be, conservation of angular momentum. The further away the winds are, the further away you are from the center of rotation, the slower you rotate. That's the same thing that's happening. The winds are the wind size is broadening, but it's getting slower. what's happening is the energy is distributing around the cyclone, redistributing itself. So in a sense, the storm itself isn't quite weakening per se. It's only getting larger in size, and that is actually more dangerous because that means a larger area, the land area, is under threat of tropical storm force winds and storm surge.
Yeah, indeed, that is actually the precise physical explanation of why it broadens itself because of angular momentum and relative humidity stuff, which is already proven in multiple researches that these factors can lead to a broadening of a tropical cyclone, just like what Hinnamnor is forecasting.
Let's get some questions from viewers. Poppy Chew says, do you think this has any possibility of going over 200 miles per hour intensity?
No.
Hard doubt. Hard doubt.
No. Regarding
No.
gusts, regarding wind gusts, strength potentially, but sustained winds, not even
No.
close.
It shall remain. It should remain below the 180 mile per hour threshold, and it's already
Unless
like
you
it
get
is on its peak.
unless you get reconnaissance aircraft in the storm, I don't think we are getting 200 miles per hour anywhere in the world right now.
Another comment, what's the peak
Broderick
of...
is already at its limit.
Yes?
Yep, what's the peak of this storm according to the GFS model right now?
No clue,
well,
but
Pressure
I can
peak.
get on
No.
Weatherbill.
Pressure peak is still supposed to be after passing through the islands.
I would like to point out that
Go on my
there's
screen.
GFS, well, there's no global model that the resolution can simulate this typhoon that well. It's too coarse for this tiny system.
What about the HRWF?
Good question.
The init isn't that good.
Yeah, it's kind
The
of
init
weak.
is poor.
Were you asking what it's forecasting, though, in general? Because I'd like to know.
I'm very sure it's just forecasting that stall and just it weakening, then maybe intensifying a bit as it begins to jet northward toward the Korean Peninsula, but it's already made its strongest peak. I don't think what GFS has will play out. Because it also still has to contend with the possible Fujiwara interaction with 13W.
Well, Akshay, you're showing us that run right now, actually.
Yeah, this is the HRWF run. Oh, HWRF, my bad.
I didn't
Yeah.
want to correct you.
The model,
Sorry.
that model's been consistent.
This
Just
one's going a bit
forecast.
bonkers with max sustained winds, or what is it now? About 154 miles an hour, which is high in Cat 4.
I think we can throw that one in terms of wind out the window, but
And what does it forecast?
Sorry, my... Oh, there we go. Okay. 154 miles an hour max sustained winds. And if I go on hurricane panel, got a minimum pressure of 917 millibars.
I'm gonna be honest, depending on how much time this has post Eyewall replacement cycle, I don't think it's gonna be able to get back to category 5. As it has the favorable sea surface temperatures and heat content, I just don't think it has that time. With it potentially broadening out as it finishes the cycle, intensification will essentially become a lot slower and won't be able to do what it did yesterday, explosively intensify.
I just like to point out that well, when the storm is undergoing our replacement cycle, the intensity will likely to drop like 10 to 30 knots, like 20% from current intensity. Wave peak at 150 knots, and then when you cut it at 20%, it's like low in Cat 4. And then when you re-intensify, I won't rule out category 5 yet. Like 155 forecast is okay, But when you forecast 155, you don't rule out Category 5. It actually still within a decent confidence. It'll re-intensify when it slows down. When the storm's undergoing our replacement cycle, there's a very common journal. Intensity structure changes during hurricane our replacement cycle, written in December 2011. Sikorsky et al. 2011. It tells you that by default, an average weakening duration is 16 hours for replacing Eyewall. Maybe longer for stronger system. I don't know. So you have 18 to 24-hour weakening, and then with a 12 to 24 re-intensification trend. Which if we use T number concept to think about it, it is likely to offset, which would lead you to near T7 result. And then when you go further south, you have a lower tropopause temperature, which favors convection to be colder, that favor the satellite estimates to go higher, which leads you to the higher result.
Some more questions here as well. I might be missing some because things are quite busy over here. A question there, do we have a chance of this making its way to Taiwan or something like that, or will it just come near the Japanese islands?
I think that
Depends.
up to the Fujiwara. Essentially, whatever 13W does to shift typhoon further west, I think Taiwan could see potentially typhoon conditions as this expands, as it swells and then just makes its northward.
However, the core of the system should pass relatively to the far east or northeast of Taiwan. However, they can still experience some potentially dangerous conditions as Fujiwara effect does take place.
Yeah.
What complicates matters is the existence of 13W.
It would practically be rip
NW.
currents at that point.
13W essentially just makes.
No. Hurricane force winds unlikely in Taiwan. You need to be like 100 kilometers, so like 100 to 150 kilometers to experience hurricane sustained winds. Tropical storm force winds still possible, I'll say. You need to be incredibly close to Taiwan, but at the same time, it is incredibly close to Taiwan, like within 1 degree. The continental subsidizing air due to terrain will further disrupt the system, especially the western side, which makes hurricane conditions even more unlikely. The rough seas, tropical storm force winds, or showers is still possible, like early next week. That's what I would like to say.
So what we're getting from this really is that the formation of 13W, which is going to be a bit of an annoyance, especially for us forecasters, is going to be a big factor in what this storm does. And another question there from Dorian M. Will Hinnomnor weaken due to its interaction with tropical depression Gardo? For those who don't know, that's the Philippine name for that new depression. What do you guys think?
Myanmar, that's shearing 13W, or Gardo, depending on what you call it, to absolute death. It's been having a hard time just in tightening up that circulation. Its convective activity is extremely sheared.
Sure, but with Gardo being in the way, is that going to weaken Hinnomnor any?
I doubt it, because Gardo won't be producing.
I will say that we said the same thing with Vernon and 16S in March, and look what happened.
That's a good point.
But then again, I will say that 16S was a lot closer to Vernon than 13W is a lot further away from Hinnomnor.
Could we see mainland Japan get tropical storm winds later in the period? Absolutely.
Absolutely possible.
Western Kyushu, be on the lookout. Certainly.
take a look at the latest JTWC forecast cone, you can actually see the extent of the tropical storm force winds, and it does expand quite remarkably.
Yeah, once you look back at that cone, you can see just how it might be able to make that leap. Alright, is it going to re-intensify after passing Okinawa?
Possible. Very much possible.
Probably.
Possible.
Yeah.
When
you leave, when you leave a stalling area, the sea surface temperature rises again. The 29-30 degrees sea surface temperatures is all the way up to 30 to 35 degrees north, which is pretty much extraordinary. With the earlier summer heat event, which leads to an incredibly high sea surface temperature, even higher latitudes. Also, when you accelerate, you have higher winds at the right quadrant as well, which pretty much several formula tells you that when the tropical cyclone moves faster, there's higher winds than those who are stalling. Yeah. These are major factors.
In addition to that, we also have climatology for La Nina, which forces basically all the warm water in the Pacific to the western side. So the warm water continues to build up on the western Pacific. So it allows warmer waters to stay in higher latitudes than normal.
Indeed.
Okay, let's see if there's some other questions here. There's a question about whether... I've just lost that one again. But there was something about whether the team thought that it was going to become an annular storm. Or whether it was. Obviously, I don't think it was, but whether it would become one, I certainly doubt that either.
Firstly, there may be some annual characteristics earlier. That's because of not so high relative humidity, which restricted banding development as surroundings. But yeah, earlier it may have such characteristic, but may not exactly a particular perfect annular cyclone. But later on, as it for some systems, as it completes our replacement cycle, it will turn annual, like Isabel or something, Noru, something like that. But there are two important factors that will affect whether it will become annual or not. Annularity we call. First one, sea surface temperature. If it is incredibly high, about 29, it makes annular unlikely because the rising at the surrounding is favored by increased rising from high sea surface temperature. Secondly, relative humidity. Models predicted that relative humidity continues to rise, especially after tomorrow, to above 80%, which a high humidity favors banding development along with sea surface temperature. When you have significant banding outer spiral ring band development, like a few hundred kilometers away from the center, when you have many bandings, that means it is not annular. That means it is highly unlikely so.
Alright, first visible images starting to appear here. Let me just go through this first.
Let's go.
And you can see, well, nothing much yet, but you can make out the edge of the storm starting to appear here on visible. So we'll get a good look at the storm from our eyes in space again fairly soon as we enter daylight hours. So, go ahead.
Oh, nothing much. I was about to say the exact same thing.
Oh, well, that's convenient.
Nathan,
Yes.
He is on the bull.
may I say about the wave heights right now that are along the islands? They're about like 21 feet high, feet waves right now along the shore. I can't say the island's name correctly, but if anyone can say it, please say it. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that right now about the wave heights.
Okay. Thank you for that. And here's a new frame that's just come out, a pretty ominous view there of a darkened eye. Let's just see if we can touch up this imagery a little bit and make it more useful to look at. Ah, there we go.
Looks terrifying. I just saw it.
Nathan, if we can go over what an eyewall replacement cycle is yet again, because we just received the question, when an eye replacement occurs, will the storm lose its eye? Would anybody like to go over that?
Sure. Alright, I'll go for it. Or you want to go for it, so...
You can go for it.
Alright, I'll go for it. So an hour replacement cycle occurs for a stronger tropical cyclone, like mostly category 3 or above, but sometimes maybe occur for some weaker tropical cyclone, but mostly strong above major, at least major tropical cyclone. There's some internal process that will lead to a formation of a secondary eyewall, which the secondary eyewall will there will be a temporary weakening that lasts for half a day to a day, roughly 16 hours of weakening, as the outer eyewall replaces the inner eyewall, which the inner eyewall will collapse, which that's why you see the appearance that it weakens, the inner eye collapses, the infrared appearance looks bad as the eye closes up, as the inner eye collapses, but as the inner eye being killed off completely, the outer eye will continue to intensify, and when the inner eye continues to drop, and then you get the outer eye intensify, and gradually it will re-intensify, but to a point that in some occasions it can intensify even stronger than the intensity before our replacement cycle. But one of the major impact to the storm structure is that the wind field size enlarges because of the conservation angular momentum. It's being altered during the replacement process, which brings further impact to the larger area system.
One interesting thing is that an eyewall replacement cycle is still one of the great mysteries of meteorology as a whole, because nobody knows why they actually happen.
This storm in recent satellite imagery frames, it jogged southwards and it now looks like it's performing a jog westwards, so the general movement probably remains west-southwest, drawing quite quickly away from those islands now. But looks to me in those just latter frames that convection is coming back on strong again, and it's possibly improving a little bit there. Hard to tell just from one or two frames.
How does this...
Yes?
Just wondering why Japan doesn't have WSR 88Ds, like the full-on good next rad radars, but this random island right here does. That makes no sense to me. It's good because we can get a good view of the hurricane, but sorry, typhoon. But I'm just wondering why Japan doesn't have those super good radars. For, like,
I can't help you with that. I have no idea.
I don't know why. They should invest. I mean, they've invested in this island, maybe because it gets hit by typhoons all the time, as we can see here. But yeah, it's interesting.
Nathan, is there any like updates with the wind shear? Because on the radar I'm looking at, it looks like it's heading towards some high wind shear. From its
Well, first of all, let's look at your screen, showing wind shear values of 25 plus knots, and further towards Taiwan over 30 knots. What do our team think of that?
Well, when you see the red, very high shear, 25-30 knot, it's gonna weaken. But why is it still that impressive? Yes, because hold that image. You can see the streamlines, the shears going northeast at around 25 knots here.
People should probably realize that shear is relative. So it's related to the steering, the direction in which the storm's moving. For example, if the shear is if the storm is moving in the direction of the shear, then the net shear that the storm experiences will be lower than what the actual raw shear value is.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah,
And
that makes it to only like 10 knot of shear. 10 knot of shear, well, much lower shear, which sounds more reasonable with respect to its appearance currently.
So does that mean that wind shear will start to increase in relative terms or whatever when the storm turns around?
Yes, we expect it to do so.
Yeah,
Right.
that can be, yeah.
That's gonna
But
mess it
of
up.
course, you have the cyclone's original outflow, and it's a very long. As our replacement cycle finish, it expands much further, such that the outflow, the size, is more resilient to wind shear, such that even during higher wind shear, it can better withstand those negative conditions and hold itself.
Okay, if you've just joined us, Typhoon Hinnamnor is still on the border threshold of Category 5 status. After it was a little bit stronger earlier on, we think. It's hard to tell where this storm is headed in terms of its intensity. Is it all downhill from here in terms of its strength, or is it still going to go for another Category 5 peak in the short term, say the next 12 hours?
Category 5 we can't say for sure, but re-strengthening definitely.
Yeah, the strength will decrease. Jtwc think it will go down to a high-end Category 2 when it stalls, and then re-strengthen when it moves northwards through the Ryukyu Islands and back up to Category 4 is what they're saying now on their latest forecast. There it is once again on your screen. And note just how much the wind field increases as well. On that 5-day cone point on the cone, the tropical storm force winds extend from the coast of China all the way to the Umami Islands of Japan, and that is 3.5 times larger than it currently is. So when you look at images of it right now, imagine 5 days, 3.5 times larger. You sort of have a blend between strength and size when it comes to the impactfulness of these storms, really. There's other factors too, but if we're going to simplify it a lot, just watered down to those terms, strength and size. Right now it is a small, powerful storm. When it gets much larger, it will be a little bit less powerful, but not by much, and it will be 3.5 times larger, so it's going to be much worse by that point, which is why we're very concerned about this storm and its future as it heads towards populated areas. Let's not forget, you're talking about South Korea and the southern part of Japan that could get slammed by this storm still as a Category 2 later on day 6 or 7. Over 50 million people roughly in those populations, if not more even. So very large amounts of population could be affected in the long run.
Nathan, if you want to pull up my stream here, you can actually see a clear amount of convection bubbling on the south and western quadrant on satellite image. Is it at the frame where it should be?
Oh, I see.
It would like to load for me.
Yeah, I don't know if you're having signal
Unfortunately.
issues, you're dropping out a little bit.
Okay, there we go. You can see clearly on the southern and western quadrant that there is a clear increase in convection. As you can see, the northwestern quadrant of the Eyewall is rather shrinking a bit, which would indicate that another Eyewall replacement cycle is underway. But you can clearly see that that's the core of the eye is passing just to the north, barely missing one of the islands there. I believe it is the Daito Islands. I'm
That's
not
the
100%
collective name for all of those small islands.
Daito. Okay. But yeah, you can clearly see that this storm does not want to play around. It looks nasty on satellite imagery, and yeah.
I think in Flight Sim I'm in the eye or near where the center is, but as it's going through an eyewall replacement cycle, be harder and harder to tell. But I think I see it.
So at this point, Taniel is doing a flight sim around the storm, which I guess is some kind of mock-up of what the eye might look like right now. That could be a slight indication there.
I think right there's the eye.
But
I still don't get how Microsoft Flight Simulator does this. This is insane how it can replicate the real world to some extent.
it
So
is
cool.
quite insane, and if you are interested in that kind of thing, we do flights every so often on our extra channel. It's not the main thing we do though. The main thing is actually forecasting the storm. But it is
Right.
fascinating to watch
This
those.
is actually a Flight Sim channel, guys.
I have the.
Go ahead.
Now would probably be a good time. Now would probably be a good time to point out this little interesting little trivia. Uh, this is the first Category 5 typhoon in August since Jebi in 2018.
Ah.
Oh, so it's been a while.
2018, a fascinating year in the Western Pacific as well.
Yeah, from Flight Sim, it seems like the eye is beginning to fill. So,
Well, it's apparently going to fill with our replacement cycle. It's already filling by the convection. Well, you see the convection is blowing in a smaller and smaller radius, which means the contraction of eyewall.
yeah.
And I am also not just liking how warm these waters are. On my stream, you can actually see basically what the sea surface temperatures are looking at right now. And on this, they are forecasting upwards of over 30 degrees Celsius sea surface temperatures in some spots.
The water
That
where it
is-
will stall over is 31 degrees.
That is very, very warm waters.
It is, but well, the main thing we should be looking out for is ocean heat content.
I might have actually been wrong about the location I was.
And oceanic heat content is also moderately high in this area too.
So you could probably expect decent strengthening a little while stalling before it becomes weakening.
We're happy to take any more questions that you might have watching our stream today. Send them in, start your message with Force 13 all in text. We're going to try and cover all bases with this storm whilst we're on the air. I'm not sure how long we're going to be here for today, but we are committed to delivering at least a few hours of coverage per day at this point, with this storm really threatening areas. Hard to tell when you look at these close-up frames. Close up in terms of time as well, just exactly what's happening to that eye. Let's see if we can grab some extra imagery of the rapid scan, and whilst I work on that, I'll throw it to someone else if anyone wants to speak up right now. You don't have to.
Don't have to.
But we are continuing to watch this storm extremely closely, as you would expect us to. Powerful, on the verge of Category 5 strength, at least. I've just pressed the button, and thankfully nothing broke on the screen. There are still warnings, of course, out for those islands, and I think there's still only Gale Advisories for Okinawa, unless someone wants to correct me on that.
I can check now.
Is there any warnings for those islands?
Oh yeah, they're there under typhoon warnings properly. Well, let's take a look then now at another visible image. We're getting our first visibles of the day now. There's a new image of how the storm looks there.
Before we continue with Hinnomnor, I should probably take a while to quickly note that 13W is expected to peak at 40 knots with the new Jtwc Cone.
Oh damn.
Wow.
So
Nathan, we just received the question here from Maddox Bissett. How much has the recent and or still ongoing heat wave across Japan, China, and Korea has impacted the ocean sea surface temperatures in the region of Hinnomnor?
that's a good question, something I don't know the actual answer to, but I can speculate.
If you want an answer, well, just last week, Tokaj peaked as a Category 3 at the latitude of Tokyo, and the temperatures over it were still 28, 29 degrees Celsius at that latitude.
Sea surface temperatures are much above average at Japan's latitude and this whole region where this storm is right now. Whether that combined with the heat wave or whether it's the other way round, or sea surface temperatures cause a heat wave or whatever, or whether it's just a coincidence, I'm not really a climatologist in that regard. But fact of the matter is, sea surface temperatures are well above average, and that is part of the reason why this storm is so this is so strong right now.
Now, I understand
Don't
that...
really have a precedent for this type of track. Like, I went through all the recent track analogs for Hinnomnor, and I can't find any proper analog for a storm that consistently went westward at 25 degrees north latitude.
Oh, I'm sure there are.
Like, the closest I could find was Saomai of 2006.
Yeah, it might have been that one I was thinking of. I can't remember now. Just looking at...
I think I know. Jelawa 2000. I think Jelawa 2000.
I'm sure there's one, but I can't remember which one, so...
I think it's Jelawa 2000.
Now, Nathan, I know we didn't bring this up just yet. What is going to be the biggest risk overall? Also, to add on, we also could see some to potentially catastrophic rainfall and landslides given topographic lift, and also elevations aren't the highest within Hinnomnor's path, and given those conditions, we've also forecasted rainfall amounts to potentially exceed 20 inches, it would not be a surprise to see some very dangerous and extremely life-threatening flash flooding, including landslides, to affect several regions in the path of this monster typhoon.
Well, that is basically the main point. The tropical cyclone's main area of impact is flooding and storm surge.
And given also given the topographic lift and low elevations, it could be a really, really bad scenario for those who live within those certain elevations.
Aren't most Japanese islands a part of the Ring of Fire? So they should be mountainous.
There are some elevations that are 500 meters above the surface, or sea level, at this rate.
Yeah, it's just that they're rather small islands, so they don't get that high. But, yep, absolutely a serious issue in the making there when you look at the potential for rainfall. Over the area that the storm is going to be stalling, it could still exceed 40 inches of rain, 40. But at the moment, it doesn't look like that's going to be over land. It does appear that you're right, 20 inches for part of, we think at the moment either Miyakojima or maybe Kumijima could get the highest amount of rain on land, up to about 20 inches. And also to point out, over the Taiwanese mountains as well, we could be looking at 12 inches or more, which is 300 millimeters of rain.
Nathan, is the islands are still in the Eyewall, or are they in hurricane force winds right now?
Well, the Eyewall, as we saw on radar earlier, is tiny, so I doubt it's in the Eyewall.
Yeah, it's probably just hurricane or typhoon forced winds right now.
Maybe not even that anymore. It's drawing away from those islands pretty quickly.
So, more than likely, tropical storm.
I mean, it is a likely small storm.
And also adding on to those rainfall totals, given the fact that we are going to expect a stall here, any regional land that does get impacted by these outer rain bands could potentially see even more rain than forecasted, given the fact that it's stalling over an area, and yeah, it could potentially produce even more rainfall than forecasted in some areas where it stalls the closest to.
All right, just seeing if we can get another variation of some imagery on here. Not yet. We'll wait a little bit longer for that. Let's see if we've
Still
got.
flying around in recon.
You are.
Yep.
Let's see if we've got some more questions right now. Which pathing is more likely at the moment, toward Korea or more towards mainland Japan? Both look about 50-50 for the eye. Kenneth, what do you think? I just thought.
So far, the trend's been still the trough will lead to a northern turn of Hinnamnor and then go all the way back to Japan. Maybe share this first. 3, 2.
It's all in the timing of when the trough picks it up. It's all in the timing of when the mid-latitude trough picks up the storm.
Right. So that's what's going to happen. It's mainly about when then.
It's really all chaos. 13W is really complicated matters. We don't really know where it will head after recurving.
And once again, as we take a look at the wide shot here, with daylight starting to reach the storms, well, the storm and the depression, you can see 13W to the south of Hinnomnor, and that is going to be playing a very large role in what happens to the big one.
We also just received another question here from Joseph's Astronomy. Will this affect South Korea or make a landfall in South Korea? Given latest model trends, we are expecting a west-southwestward direction to pass very, very south of Okinawa. Then we are expecting a stall and then a shift to the north and then a shift to the north-northeast or whatnot. And there is the potential for South Korea to expect some impacts from the storm. Not direct landfalls, but definitely some considerable impacts given recent model data and consensus.
Yes, here's some new imagery on the rapid scan showing how it's been progressing in the last few minutes. Westerly right now, with a pretty deep eye. Still very impressive.
And I just crashed into the ocean.
Excellent.
Because
we also just received another question here. Ated, do you recon this storm could rival Typhoon Tip size-wise? Absolutely not.
Nope.
Oh no.
Definitely not.
No, not likely.
Absolutely not. Not at all.
Could Hinnomnor reach Category 4 typhoon strength near Japan? Is it possible? I assume they mean the main islands. Let's assume that they mean the main islands, because it's definitely going to happen near these islands, because it has.
Well, that would depend on how close it is to the trough when it's intensifying after stalling. And
Right. Once again, here is the Jtwc Cone, which suggests that it will reach 115 knots, which is Category 4 at, I think, 28 degrees north, I think that is. And then speed off towards the northeast, and its track after that remains very unclear. The size of that cone is quite telling. For one thing, it is huge. More comments then. Is Taiwan going to get affected by Hinnomnor? It looks now as though the chances are going up for tropical storm conditions on the north coast and northeastern coast. So I think that's going to happen. You can see it's well underneath the radials from the Jtwc forecast there. And they're going to get significant rainfall, which could total over 300 millimeters over the mountains. And will it reach Category 5 status? Again would be the question, as it already has done once, and many argue that it still is. Could we just get a little rundown on what all the agencies and techniques are saying right now? Does anyone have all that? Hey, let's start with the easy one. The JTWC are still calling it a Category 5, correct?
Yeah.
That was as of 18Z.
And when you look at the satellite techniques, ADT, what are they going with?
ADT Rule 5.8 CI 6.6 AIDT going 138. So what?
Oh dear.
ADT 130 knot, AIDT 138 knot, SATCOM 135 knot, subjective for at 127 knots, 6.5 pretty much right now, and then you have open ARAR 130 like 132 knot right now. Consensus supporting 130 to 135 knot right now. Surface observation indicating lower than 920 millibars, which suggesting if you're compromising both, yeah, you have 135 knot pretty much at pressure sub 920, and then you have deep micro net right now. Also like 130 to 135. The consensus lies within 130, 135 knots.
Really? So, no longer a Category 5 then?
Pretty much, you can say it lost Category 5 status with medium to high confidence.
Alright.
And then also with the high confidence that the pressure is still well below 920, given the observation 2 hours ago.
First visible images here of the storm right now. Once again, on the rapid scan though. Geocolor. Nice imagery. Looks to me like a stadium effect inside that eye.
Yeah, that's in the stadium effect, a very resounding stadium effect, particularly at peak intensity. That very smooth CDO negative 70 to 75 tops, a very dry eye in water vapor, only negative 90, 23 degree to 20 or 25 degree eye in polar and infrared imagery. That resounding stadium, it still has the stadium effect you can see, but definitely weakened, and the eye is more obstructed. It will further more obstructed as the replacement process continues.
Thank you, Kenneth. We're going to take a short break here at the end of the hour, as we often do. We'll be back with more coverage on Hinnomnor in just a few minutes. Don't go away. Our live coverage will continue in a moment. You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Welcome to our latest coverage hour of Typhoon Hinnamnor, which is an extremely powerful Category 4 storm, just off its Category 5 peak now, moving westwards, passing the Daito Islands, and still just short, very close to that Category 5 threshold, an extremely powerful typhoon. We don't really want to look at the category though, because that's not really the full story. This storm currently is still rather small. It's going to stall for a while, well to the south of Okinawa in a couple of days, and then balloon in size, and then move back through into the East China Sea, and then off towards either Korea or southern Japan, or both. By which point it will be 3.5 times larger, according to latest forecasts, and will still have winds of at least 130 miles per hour. According to the Jtwc forecast right now for day 5. So it is impressive and powerful and destructive right now, and it's going to remain the case for quite some time. Let's not lose sight of that as we take a look at the latest radar from Taniel right now. Hello there and welcome back. What have we got right now?
Well, we currently have like the edge of the eye, but slowly this is making its way towards the west and coming through on the full radar. What I'm seeing is the eye is definitely shrunken, but still on this radar I cannot see any full defined of the eye doing a replacement. But on satellite that's apparent.
Well, it's radar that matters over satellite though.
Yes. Still decently impressive bands of rain for radar being this far out.
Yeah.
Those bands will slowly make their way ashore, and some of those bands, as they pass through some of the islands, might have it been up tornado or waterspout.
Ethan, let's see what you have. You there?
Oh, you're coming to me. Oh.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's hard to see, but guys, thank you. But there is clearly an eyewall operation cycle ongoing here. There's the inner eyewall, and right about there, you can start to see the outer eyewall starting to develop here, maybe a little bit down there too. But clearly, an eyewall operation cycle is ongoing. I can actually loop it there, and yep, that's pretty solidly an eyewall operation cycle ongoing right now with this storm. But outer bands starting to get towards Okinawa. You can see Okinawa there on the left. We can go ahead and we can get a rough distance from that band. Closest point. That outer band is about 74 miles away, so we'll say 75 miles away.
120 kilometers.
Yeah, that's moving towards the island, and we can once again loop this. You can see that outer band clearly making its way towards that island. So Okinawa, in the next few hours, you're going to be getting that first outer band, and then you'll be probably in the storm for a few days.
Yep.
But that's the latest radar imagery that I can provide here.
And
yeah.
I thought Jose had some imagery up as well.
Oh, sorry. My bad.
Just because it also looked decent, that imagery, it would be nice to see that perspective as well.
But sorry, it's very slow.
That's okay. We're just looking at some other stuff right now.
Also, Nathan, on Zoomer, even though it's, like the 20 minutes behind, you still have a very kind of clear view. It's actually, you can see the full eye.
And that's what Jose is looking at right now.
Yeah, I had Zoom and Windy up. If you want to look at the Windy better. Yeah, it just reached the radar Uh,
I think that's the most impressive for we've had so far.
yeah.
Interesting.
Breaking.
Breaking.
Breaking news.
I just received a tweet here that a report that evacuation orders have been put into place for, correct me on my pronunciation, Minami Daito and Kita Daito due to the approaching Super Typhoon Hinnamnor and
That's gotta be old.
Imagery district.
That's gotta be old news, I'm afraid, because that last place is where the storm just passed.
This was from 8 hours ago, and now I realize that.
Okay.
Dang it.
I mean, oh wait, who said about what the convection in the western or northeastern? My bad. Was it like on the Rambu side? It does
Western
show.
and southern, I think.
Was it? I think I must have forgot who said it. But like Nathan, if you're looking at my screen, yeah, like it does show of the convection like building back up.
It does a little bit.
Yeah.
Still need to see a bit more coming from it though. It's actually, the more you look at it here, the more it's appearing lopsided.
Yeah.
Eastern side versus western side there.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I just wonder what might be the cause of that.
Well, there is shear to the north.
Yeah.
I
Well,
wonder if it's not fully tapped into it. However, I'll look at satellite. Give me a sec.
We heard about
Is
that
it where those-
earlier, but our
I'll
cyclone
check.
analysts suggested that it wouldn't be that impactful on the storm because it's traveling in the same direction as it.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like shear. Shear will be a problem as it travels northward later on, but currently nothing would be. I think it's just because of the eyewall replacement. Could be there will be blasts of convection eventually on that side.
There are dust. Wait, there's normally dust in the Western Pacific, right?
It's not dust, it would be just dry air.
Dry air, my bad, dry air.
I mean, on
I don't
some
know if
occasions you might get dust blowing in from maybe the Gobi Desert once in a while.
Oh, here we go. This is much better. Yeah, like I say,
Yeah,
like
there's
around-
good.
almost just near the islands where I said dry air is at. But I don't think it's the dry air. It's probably just the Eyewall replacement cycle.
I don't see any dry air in there right now.
No,
Maybe
not really.
there might be some little pockets, but that's like your normal pockets.
Yeah.
Typhoons. It's holding it off pretty well though. Nonetheless.
We're here for your questions whilst we're here as well. Let's keep them coming in. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. We'll be able to take them live on our broadcast. I think it's very important that we do that on our streams, so we are. Keep them coming in whilst we continue discussing the storm. You're going to go ahead with something else?
Oh, I was gonna say if on the Rambo satellite, it looks like the eye is kind of like closing up and opening back up just a bit.
Might be a tiny more tiny eye for this.
Yeah, you might be reading a bit much into that. They tend to. Just actually interesting though, just that southerly part there, a little hot tower blowing up.
I posted something in live output. I just posted a screenshot of satellite imagery currently from the JTWC, and it does appear that I am noticing hinting signs that Fujiwara effect might start to be going underway here.
Oh, I'm sure it already is.
You can see clearly that the southern storm is starting to, let's say, interact with Hinnomnor, and I just wanted to point that out, that I think we might already be seeing Fujiwara effect occurring at this very moment.
Alright. Looks like we just lost our imagery here for a minute. Let's load something else up. Once again, looking back at the geocolor visible imagery from the Himawari rapid scan, showing the storm's progress this morning. If you're just waking up over there in East Asia, this is a borderline Category 5 storm still. Very intense, 155 mile per hour winds estimated. That's 250 kilometers per hour. And a central pressure somewhere around the low 920s, but others suggest it's still in the 910s. It'll be an interesting one to reanalyze after the fact, but a very powerful storm this is, and it's set to grow much larger and still remain fairly strong throughout the next 5 days. Just to remind you of the track forecast from the JTWC, there it is. They expect gradual weakening at first, then a little bit more quickly weakening when it makes that stall and that hooking motion, and then shooting back northwards, increases its winds to Category 4 strength again after dropping to high-end Category 2 if the JTWC's forecast is correct. But look at the enormous wind fields. All those dials there, those correspond to wind fields. The sort of burgundy colour on the outside, that's the tropical storm wind field. So that's winds of 65 kilometers per hour or higher. The middle one, sort of a maroon colour, is the 50 knot wind field, which is around about 105 kilometers per hour, or 100. And the inner one is the typhoon force wind field, and that's winds of around 120 kilometers per hour or higher. And you can see that one grows by about 3 times as well. Massive typhoon wind field when you get to the end of that forecast. It's not just this though, it's the massive amounts of rain that are possible. Assuming that it stays south of the islands when it stalls, that would be a bit of good news, because wherever that storm stalls the most, you're going to see rainfall amounts of over 40 inches, which is 1,000 millimeters.
Goodness.
Yep.
And how much is that in inches?
40 inches.
Oh dear.
What?
And then, but at the moment we're expecting half that on some of those islands when it moves through. 500 millimeters.
Still a lot.
Yep. And we're still looking at about 300 millimeters for the mountains of Taiwan, as well as parts of Kyushu, and we're expecting widespread 250 millimeters across South Korea in the longer range at this time, but that's still a little bit out yet. We have a wind speed probability chart from Jose.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. I thought I was talking. Yeah, it looks like some of the islands may reach. I don't know if this is tropical storm or hurricane force winds.
That's tropical storm force there.
Oh, okay. Looks like some of the islands down here may have winds like probably 70. I'm trying to get you learning this.
No.
70,
This is percentage chances of tropical storm force winds.
So I guess 70% chance of tropical storm force winds right now, if I'm correct, Nathan.
Around about 90, nearly 90 in those areas, but I'm more interested in places like Taiwan there. You're looking at Taipei, it's about 35% there. Okinawa, no guarantee that you will get tropical storm force winds when you look at this graphic here. That would be quite ironic. And then you've got, even up in Shanghai, around about 10% chance for you as well if it does go west and further west than expected. So an interesting graphic. Let's go back to our latest satellites and see if we've got another super close-up. Here it is on the water vapor imagery. And these are the very latest frames general direction west-southwest, moving away from the Daito Islands now. Let's see if we have any more questions at this point. I think we
That radar
actually-
imagery looks so impressive on Windy's radar.
Just looking at a few other of my sources.
On Windy, you can see that eyewall kind of going in and out.
There it is. Now, I'm not sure if what they use is raw radar data or whether it's smoothed or whether there might be some kind of bias or in a way that might alter
It's
this.
a composite.
Right.
Only on satellite, you can see that the storm is lopsided a little bit.
Certainly is, but it looks much more
Yeah, not
symmetrical.
completely annular.
Much more symmetrical there on the radar.
Yes. To be fair, not the full radar is visible there, though.
Most of it is.
Most of it, but not all of it.
I'm mainly looking at the core there. The inner and the outer eye walls.
Yeah.
Looking good. And the islands there being slammed by the rear side of the storm too. So one of our moderators tonight, A Moment of Lovely, sends us a question of their own. JMA 105 knot sustained winds, JTWC 140 knot winds. Could the JMA have better and more recent data, or are they just wrong? Well, the JMA always goes low as a absolute 100% rule. They always go low.
What was the GMA estimate again?
105 knot.
That's 10
Does
minutes
say-
sustained winds, first off, and
think
typically
so.
105 knots by the GMA typically means Category 5 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Typically.
But it still doesn't make sense. Because 105 knots 10 minutes sustained is about 125 knots 1 minute sustained. Which is 145 miles an hour.
Well, that's using the 10-minute conversion, which the GMA has, like, their own, I guess.
How odd that is.
I'm not the GMA, so I don't know how they operate.
We need to ask them one day. We need to get them on our broadcast. But it's just a general rule that they are always low. I guess you get a better idea from what pressures they run with, central pressures. I don't know what they're going with right now. I know earlier they were at 920 millibars. They might still be there. Yep, they're still at 920.
What Cobra scale?
Sorry?
What Cobra scale?
What is that? I've never heard of that.
The scale GMA is using.
Which one? I'm not sure.
The Cobra scale. What's GMA estimate has?
There are 105 knots maximum sustained winds.
That's 140, not 1 minute. Cobra scale returns that.
Well, that's interesting. I haven't heard of that one. And of course, they're saying gusts of 150 knots, which is 175 miles per hour. And usually when you forecast gusts of 150 knots, then it's usually at least 130 knots sustained winds. Usually, general rule. They are expecting further deepening the JMA to 915, and they have 915 all the way through to September the 3rd. That would be fascinating. Bad.
915, you said?
It would be bad, but it would be fascinating if that actually happened. To maintain 915 millibars all the way through till, when is that? Saturday.
Hold on, when do they have it attaining 915 millibars?
Starting Starting tomorrow morning. Well, this evening, local time.
I need to pull up this cone for myself. Give me one moment.
They have a quite
This is
an
baffling.
aggressive cone from JMA. We'll show you this as well to show you their cone. This is the JMA's cone, and you can see where it goes. Day 1, day 2, 3, 4, 5. There it is by the end. And actually, the more I look at that, they're having a bit more of a westward trend at the end of that cone compared to the JTWC.
That's interesting. So yeah, they forecast 915 millibars beginning, let's see here. That's the 31st at 9Z. That's in 11 hours.
Yeah.
11 hours. So that's not long at all, and then it maintains 915 millibars throughout the entire stall.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
I can't see that happening.
No, neither can I. That's not going to happen. Yeah, they forecast a Category 5 from through pretty much now, all the way until, let's see here. I'm just doing my number check here. There's no way this is true. They forecast it for the next 4 days. What?
What?
That's what they're forecasting.
Yes, they forecast a Category 5 for the next 4 days. I'm not kidding you.
What model? What model?
This isn't a model. This is from the JMA. They forecast a Category 5 from the system for the next 4 days. Don't get me wrong. Conditions do actually support that if all things go right for the storm. Not saying that it's going to happen, but that's crazy. I personally would not even forecast that at all. I mean, they have it at 915 millibars, like I said, really beginning this afternoon and tonight, local time over here, that's morning hours over there, all the way through until the 4th, September 4th at 18Z, which is the morning hours over there. So that's for the next 4 days. That's ridiculous. I cannot see that happening under any circumstances, Nathan.
Now, if that were to actually come to fruition, which it would actually not, it would potentially, it would be close to, yeah, it'd be record breaking almost.
Not really. We've seen storms be at Category 5 for longer.
Like Irma in 2017.
Not while stalling, though, Ethan.
No. I mean,
people are going to say Dorian now, but even that, I don't think.
A potential record that this could break, though, is this could be the furthest north Category 5 lengthwise, for like duration as a Category 5 for this north. That could be at stake if the JMA forecast goes right. It could actually happen because conditions do support this being a Category 5 throughout the entire duration. Will it probably do that? Probably not.
No, it's physically already unsupported.
Yeah.
So, Kenneth, what do you think their methodology is then in that forecast?
I'll say that's pretty much all about the a high consistent forecast intensity reason, because it is really close to the islands, bringing threat to the to Japan territory.
So I guess you could say it's a fear of being wrong at any particular point, and it'll just blow up and be a Category 5 near one of those islands, and they won't have caught it.
They remain a very high consistency in intensity for warning reason, I think, but that is physically not going to happen. It will weaken during the stalling process. It already is weakening during this hour replacement process, which, very few agencies gonna how should I say, will instantly decrease the current intensity because of the 4x CI rule.
Alright, no changes to any warnings right now for those who are wondering. There's still Gale Advisories along Okinawa through the Umami Islands, and they extend right now as far north as... I'm just trying to get my bearings here. They used to have local maps for this. I'm not actually sure. But quite far up the chain. As far north as, just trying to find it on a different map, near Toshima. So Gale Advisories right the way up there. Curiously, no Gale Advisories yet for any of the Miyako and Yayama Islands, which are the ones to the southwest.
I would expect
which the
that
storm's
to
headed
come out
towards.
within the next 12 to 18 hours. I would expect more advisories and warnings to come out.
You would think so.
Absolutely.
Let's see if we have some more questions just now. We have one or two. Dragon Rider says, is Hinnomnor going through an Eyewall replacement cycle at the moment? And hence why right now it's only a Category 4. And I like how you say only when it's still a Category 4, which is quite insane, but people do that. But yeah, that's the main reason that it's taken a bit of a hit. Not that much of one though. It's still very strong. And has there ever been a hurricane that intensified back after an Eyewall replacement cycle a few days later after it? Or is it always followed by a weakening state? I'm sure there's plenty that have intensified afterwards. I can't think of any right now, but when you think about storms that make landfall somewhere and then they intensify on the other side, landfall usually induces an eyewall replacement. Most of those classic Atlantic hurricanes must have had eyewall replacement cycles before strengthening. I just can't think of any offhand right now. But yeah, this storm right now is still a very powerful Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. It is drawing away from the Daito Islands at this time, and as of half an hour ago it was now 28 kilometers away from the northern island Kitadaito, and is headed further away, nearly westwards, just a little bit south of west at this time. We're going to be here for quite a bit longer yet. We're going to build a tropical weather bulletin into our stream later on at our usual time, and then after that we will probably finish up for the morning. So we're going to be here for another 2.5 hours with the latest information on this storm, question and answers, discussion from our team, and just dissecting every little part of what this storm is currently up to. We'll take a look at actually next hour we'll be able to take a look at the full GFS run when that's completed. It is already going to be starting its initiation now. I wonder if anyone could cross over to that and we can have a look.
Yeah, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me hop on Weather Bell.
And more comments here. Will Hinnomnor have any wind shear issues in the future?
There you go.
Not just yet, but when it stalls, it might. Let's take a look at this now. So let's toddle over to the Western Pacific and take a look at the wind charts.
18Z is like halfway initiated, so we can get some idea of what's going to happen.
Yep.
MLSP time. Alright.
So there it is, 940s, 930s.
I'll go back to the beginning.
quite high pressures. It initiates high, usually does. A curve round, and it's still doing a loop-the-loop. And it really doesn't know what to do for a bit, and then it's going again. A lot of wobbling. And finally, it heads up towards... Oh, you're telling me it's going to shoot that gap?
Yeah, that's consistent for 2 runs now, at least.
Through it goes, and still powerful even by the time it reaches the coast of Hokkaido.
Get the wins.
Jeepers.
And
then rushing over
don't
to Alaska.
Forget, this is quite low resolution, so it will not catch the peaks in this storm. And it
Dude, that
initializes
thing really
low.
just...
How
Yeah,
strong
look how
is it there?
really intensifies. About 121, 123 mile an hour wind. Sorry, 123 knot wind gusts.
And when you see things like that, that could still mean bordering Category 5 at that point. And then moving through... I'm talking about worst case, when it moves through those areas between Korea and Japan, could still be a major typhoon. That would be pretty frightening.
Yeah, this could cause real problems. That's why
I would
quite
say
worried.
anywhere when it's at that latitude, I would say probably anywhere from Cat 2 to Cat 4 could be a potential.
928 as it enters the. Sorry.
Okay, I say more Cat 2, Cat 3, maybe even a weaker end Cat 4.
Wow.
Is my
about
estimate.
25 as it enters the corridor. And goes through at like a 934.
Wow. Do you have the European model? I know it won't be up to date.
I have all the models.
I'll say a nice either between Cat 3 or 4, low end 4 for that matter.
Euro hasn't initiated yet, but I can show you what it.
This was the last run, yep. Why is it showing it so small and weak?
I don't know.
I don't know. Euro's garbage at typhoons and hurricanes. Initially, at least. I mean, it's good for like paths, but I would not trust it for intensity.
Wait, do we normally use tropical tidbits for these?
You can use whatever.
Yeah, but I like Weatherbell because it looks nicer.
Alright.
So that's a lot of stalling there as well. It's not the hook that the Jtwc are describing still.
It's just kind of sitting there for a while. Oh, and then it makes its move. There we go. And yeah, basically the same thing as the GFS, except it. Yeah, except it. Yeah, further.
I'm just looking at the GFS right now, and you just said it's.
Hold on. I'm gonna bring over model runs.
Wind speeds are still low, obviously. Although 91 knots sustained is pretty fast.
And that could be a low ball there for a landfall in Western
Yeah,
Kyushu.
it's definitely a low ball. EMCWF does that.
Any other models?
ECMWF. Damn it, I keep getting these names wrong.
A lot of acronyms.
Looking on tropical tidbits right now, Nathan, if you want to take a look over to my screen.
Okay, let's have a look.
I'll stop sharing.
So this is what we're looking at.
Yep, there it is again.
Oh boy.
Just falls apart fast.
But still a pretty strong
Yeah.
low. Still.
Pretty strong, yeah. It just fall apart very fast, but like it's still
980. One that's up there. Interesting. This run is still in progress.
Yep.
So this is... But we'll see if there's any more storms that come behind this. This is GFS.
Nathan, if you want to go to my stream real quick, I
Sure.
have some satellite imagery pulled up, and you can see how large this secondary eyewall is.
Well, what?
We're only getting about 1 or 2 frames a second here at that.
I don't know.
Hmm.
Know why.
Let's throw
my
it
internet
back to
being a
my
pain.
imagery and might be able to see it a bit better, and you can tell us what you're referring to. Once it loads, which would be a great idea. Oh, well, there's one variation, but I want the one that has the same
I'm gonna look
enhancement.
through
There
every
it is.
single model to see if I can find ridiculous numbers here of pressure.
There it is. You can see how the eye is quite a bit larger now.
Yeah, it seems
Yeah.
like it might have finished or finishing. That was a quick eyewall replacement.
Yeah, I think it did finish its eyewall replacement cycle because you can see how
It didn't fully close though, so
but you can see how that secondary eyewall is growing.
yeah, I don't like when they have secondary eyewalls.
What's radar saying though?
It's still there, like the secondary eyewall. Unwindy, yes, I can confirm. It's there. It is getting stronger, or more together, shall we say? And I say no to that.
Yeah, not great.
Yeah, not a good thing at all. Again, no.
More questions here. What are the chances of a landfall in Taiwan? But landfall, well, that would be very unlikely. Tropical storm force winds, though, are getting more likely as time goes on. Cool Creeper Ryan says it looks like a secondary eye wall is developing again.
Yes.
We've just looked at that. I know you were telling us before we looked at it. So, yeah,
Thank you, Cool
interesting.
Creeper. Very cool.
And back to that radar imagery that you're showing us, Daniel.
Yeah, you can definitely see of that secondary. It's actually looks more bold, I guess, more there together, I guess. Not just like little pockets being missing. Now it's like fully wrapped around, so that probably is because the eye completely finished, or mostly finished. It'll probably work on that outer eye wall and make it decently strong as, and especially when this thing expands later on. I wonder if it would still have remnant of that outer eye wall.
Here's a new image of the storm with our enhancement again, and you can see how that's looking. A new visible image. Lovely visible imagery from the Himalayas.
Let me go on the live.
That looks beautiful. Beautiful but deadly.
Yeah, that eye is gone. Well, it's not gone, but it's there. It's fogged up.
It's a little foggy, but
yeah.
Hey, it's still there.
Yeah, it exists.
Give it time. Give it a moment. It's having a moment.
It is
I think we
quite deep.
received a question here from Forrest Bigornia. Force 13, will Muifa form before it will be absorbed by Hinnomnor? I think they might be referring to Garbo here.
Yep, and the next international name is Muifa. It would get both names if the JMA decide to name it.
Ah, okay.
The answer right now, I've not checked, so I'm not sure. But let me just have a little look.
It's gonna it's what I'm seeing from the forecast of that storm. If I kind of just go over to
JTWC expects it. I'm quite a bit nervous that will develop into a tropical storm. And
it's gonna last probably very quickly.
That'll just be annoying because it lasts for so short a time.
Given the fact that we're already
45.
Given the fact that we're already hinting at possible Fujiwara effect already occurring, I think it's a most likely scenario that Muifa, Garbo, and Hinnomnor will be interacting with each other, and Garbo and Muifa could be absorbed within... I can't give an estimation right now, but if I were to give a rough estimate, I would say within at least 72 to 96 hours.
Well, the reason why the GFS and the ECMWF model that we saw earlier have such a long stall is because it's busy absorbing it. That's the main reason why it didn't move over all that time. So it'll be interesting to see what the JTWC thinking is, and they must expect
Very
that it will.
depression.
They must expect that it will. I don't know, stay further away from it perhaps before dying off, and will
It probably will
prevent it
get
from
sucked into it.
from stopping as much. I don't know. It's a very
Well,
tough one to forecast. It's going to be possibly a.
This is one of those cases where you have two storms that are very close together. Again, the Fujiwara effect is a rare occurrence in basically any basin. It's especially here. It's pretty rare.
Nathan?
Oh, David has joined us and has
Yes,
made his
keeping
presence
a
known
close eye on it.
immediately. Welcome
And
to our
I've
stream.
been out, just come back from out doing some business. However, high viewers, Typhoon Warning Centre is saying that the Super Typhoon is a major influence in, I think it's, 12W?
13.
And it's 13, and it's only 400, I think 400 nautical miles between the two. So the Super Typhoon is actually influencing the one further south, and the system will move in a competing steering environment trapped between and steering ridge to the west and northeast and near equatorial ridge to the south, leading to quasi-stationary motion from 36 to 72 hours.
That's one way of saying it.
And yep, 72 hours, the approaching of a major shortwave trough with strong mid-latitude dynamic forcing will erode the ridge to the west and allow a building steering ridge to east to eject 12W out of its cocoon, and the system will begin transiting northward through the remainder of the forecast period. So we have a very complex set of factors. So at this stage, the Super Typhoon is controlling the other one, but I disagree with the Fujiwara effect.
What? Why?
Why? Because it's going to come out of the cocoon. I'm just trying to work out what direction the secondary one is going to take. So I don't see a Fujiwara effect, but
I can actually see where David's coming from, and I think that what you're alluding to more so, David, is the fact that the secondary system may end up getting absorbed by Hinnomnor.
yes, the JTWC has said that. And slingshotting it in a different direction.
However, that can be part of Fujiwara effect.
And if that did happen, then that would explain the hook that they have on the forecast.
And also the state agency, State Weather Bureau, did note that Tropical Depression Gardo could intensify into a tropical storm within the next 12 hours, and then it will most likely degenerate into a remnant low by Wednesday afternoon due to Super Typhoon Hinnamnor and could be potentially absorbed as a whole.
Now, David's with us, and we both monitor the International Space Station. I believe, looking at what I'm seeing here, David, that it will pass near the storm in about right near the end of our tropical weather bulletin hour, if I'm not mistaken.
Nathan, can you DM me like the live feed of the ISS so I can keep an eye on that?
I can't send any messages whilst I'm here, but it should be pretty easy to find when you search it up. But we'll make sure we have that when it happens. Let's see what else we have. Some more comments. Do we think the dry air will get north of it when it loops and try to destroy Hinnomnor?
Nathan, can I just partly respond to that one?
Yeah, of course.
There is, I think, dry air wind shear between the two, and that's having an effect on the development of the second one.
They're talking about later on in the life of Hinnomnor, though. I don't think, as it heads further north, dry air will be that much of an issue because it's going to be near that atmospheric river, you could say that it is, that's extending from China through Korea and beyond. Assuming that's still there.
Found it.
And doesn't it go into cooler sea surface temperatures?
Oh, of course it will in the end, but that is still
In
quite a
part,
way
yeah.
out, and let's bear in mind that sea surface temperatures are still very, very much above average,
Healthy.
particularly in these higher latitudes in the East China Sea, well above average, and to be honest, David, good sea surface temperatures up all the way until a potential landfall. So it's not going to be fun.
No, it's not, and I'm not sure. I haven't checked what the Jtwc is saying wave height, but it is impressive. On the, I'm actually looking at it via the radar scope. The satellite imagery is really good, but I'm hoping that the ISS will.
From the
have
looks
it
of
in mind.
it will.
Yep.
Right now it's in the South Pacific. Going like, yeah, gonna cross over South America.
Yep, we'll have updates on that. Looking back at the latest satellite imagery, general motion is still just south of west, and it is drawing away from the Daito Islands now. They should be out of the hurricane force winds, or the typhoon equivalent force winds, and you're getting a few of those bands now over Okinawa and its neighbouring islands. So some of those might be delivering little bits of precipitation, and a few bits and bobs blowing up on the northwestern side there as well. So some big blow-ups of convection not far from the southern tip of Umami.
Is it normal to have lightning in the Eyewall? Because I just randomly got a lightning strike on the windy radar.
Yes, it can happen in intense eyewalls.
Absolutely. It's commonly a sign of strengthening, but not always.
Okay.
And you certainly see it in strong storms.
Okay, I just got like a lightning strike on the windy radar. I just want to make sure if that's normal to see one.
Can be. If you see more, let us know, because the more common
Alright.
they get, the more that the storm might get stronger.
All right, yeah. So I just got one strike. That's it.
I'll check myself.
Yeah, I don't know if it is, but like I just randomly saw it. Like it was fast. So I'm not sure if it might pop up for you, but for me, I just saw one. I just want to make sure that
One
it is.
near the eye wall, but not on the eye wall.
All right.
It's on the outer eye wall.
We have some more comments. Zach says, could there be more Super Typhoon Category 5s in the Western Pacific soon? If you're talking
maybe,
about the
but
rest of the year, I think so.
necessary.
I think so. Throughout the
I
rest
think
of the
so,
year.
but for the rest of the year, but like, how soon are we talking?
Yeah, I don't
Like
know.
months? Maybe?
And what do we...
I think there might be a couple of Cat 5s, but I'm not sure. But that's
in the Westpac, you usually see your Cat 5s.
October's the main month for them, that's my tip. What do we think will form after these two storms in the Western Pacific? Will we see some more typhoons? Well, we'll be taking a look at the models later on to take a look at the very long range when it comes out properly and show you. And that will happen at 20 past the hour, 30 minutes from now. So look out for that. Another comment here. we should see the Hong Kong Observatory Advisory with the longevity of Category 5. I'm guessing they've done a forecast as well. I don't have hot access to that one right now, sadly.
Either. I don't have it either.
No. Mm-mm.
We didn't think about that before we went live. And let's take a look back at the rapid scan if we can. Doesn't look like we can at the moment. Whilst we wait for that, we'll take a look at the geocolor visible. This is also rapid scan. Showing you again on the northwestern side there, a few more convective tops blowing up where they were previously lacking, very close to the islands now. On the south side, quite a few hot towers that are blowing up here and there. And a lot of patterns down towards the bottom part. I'm not sure how to describe it. I'm not sure whether they're shadows or whether they're part of gravity waves or something, but they look interesting. Certainly a lot of gravity waves closer to the center being produced by all of these blowing cloud tops. Certainly looks impressive from a visual perspective. The eye is not that clear, it's quite cloudy. But it is still well there and very strong still at this point. Let's just check the RAM infrared. It's crumbling a little bit on the northwestern side, it has to be said.
What, the eye?
The Eyewall.
Oh.
Let's see. I'll check my infrared.
On satellite at any rate.
I keep refreshing mine because sometimes when I don't refresh, it's like it's kind of like a bit back. So I just refresh every single time.
I see what you're talking about, Nathan.
Yeah, it's struggling a bit right now. Which I'm
It might fully fill.
About. Little bit surprised.
It's a little. That eye holding on for dear life. A little bit. It's like I don't want to go, but I also want to stay.
Just check that this imagery is still up to date as well. I think it is. Yep, so that's our close-up view showing the storm again and the northwestern side looking a bit flaky.
Oh, hold up. Never mind. I was gonna say something, but never mind.
Never mind.
All right.
I mean, it looks like it's starting to expand, or is it just me?
There's a big blow up pushing out on the northern side.
The clouds are expanding southward. So that's outflow. Interesting.
I'll share my screen.
And that's probably shearing that the tropical depression to the south apart.
Yeah, I mean it's right under the. Yeah, I could see it. I mean it's actually like pulling all of it into it.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it engulfs and doesn't become a tropical storm at all at this rate.
Like they're very close. How close are they? That's what
I try to give you an estimate on Zoomer with like the rough range. From where? Eyes or like centers, or from just outflow to
flows?
Okay. Actually, they're touching each other, so.
Oh.
It's about 100 miles away from the center of the outflow channels.
They're close.
Yeah.
They're close, but they actually might be less. Give me a sec.
Nathan, like you can see on the cyclone track, with I can't say the name correctly. I don't know how.
Excuse me. It's 80 miles.
Yeah, like on the cyclone track, you can see it like pulling some of the bands into it. If you're not looking at my screen, it's alright, Nathan. But like it's like couple like a bit close to the islands, it shows that some of it from the other storms getting pulled into it. Some of the
I can see that.
Yeah, it's getting pulled into
It's
it.
being elongated a little bit.
Yeah.
And at this rate, I can't tell if, well, I think the main typhoon, Super Typhoon, is moving faster than it. However, it's like neck and neck.
I just
Kinda.
know that the other system is under a bit of wind shear, the yellow one.
Well,
Yeah, I'm trying to I'm learning the wind shear. I'm trying to understand which one.
well, it's probably being shared by the typhoon.
Yeah, it's going to get sheared to oblivion.
Yeah.
It already is. It's already exposed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is very strong and it's small and strong, but starting to get bigger. So technically,
You just say that now. It's getting real big.
We'll continue the discussion after this. We're taking a short break. We'll be back in just a few minutes with more on Typhoon Hinnamnor, which is an extremely dangerous threat to the Japanese islands and beyond. Don't go away. Our live coverage will continue in a moment. You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Welcome back to the latest on Typhoon Hinnamnor, which is an extremely powerful borderline Category 5 in the Western Pacific. Just about cleared the Daito Islands, although they're still getting a lot of the back end of the storm. Its next stop will be a bypass of Okinawa. They'll feel some of the storm, at least for a while, but probably not the full force, unless we see a significant deviation in track. And then it will dip southwestwards and stall for a bit under the influence of a Fujiwara effect with Tropical Depression 13W, which is newly formed. I think it was about 400 miles south. And then, after toing and froing with that storm for a while, it will start moving again in about 4 days' time, back northwards through the island chain, west of Okinawa, into the East China Sea, and will still be extremely powerful and possibly intensifying again by that point. So a dangerous storm is what we're looking at and monitoring for another 2 hours here on Force 13 Live on this morning session of live streaming, topped off with a tropical weather bulletin next hour. In 15 minutes we'll be able to look at the latest long-range GFS models to take a look at everything around the world, which we'll also cover more in depth in the tropical weather bulletin. And we will have, in just less than 2 hours time, but we may be able to see a dry run of it in a few minutes, the International Space Station should be passing near or over the typhoon. My name's Nathan Foy in the studio right now, monitoring everything from all angles and making sure that everyone's behaving themselves. I am joined this hour by my team once again in our live booth. We have Daniel, Jose, David, Ethan, Patrick, and Akshay. Hello to all of you once again for another hour of coverage. What have we noticed the most with this storm in terms of changes since we first came on the air?
The eye looks depressing.
Right, so its eye has deteriorated a fair bit.
It's suffering. It's suffering.
David, what are your thoughts?
I'm sick of us talking
It's
about
a monster.
It is still a monster, no doubt about it. A rather
And
small
the
one still.
radial
What's
of
that?
the eye, the size of the eye. Nathan, somebody asked about Hong Kong. There's nothing on their website, read the typhoon, other than it's going to linger in the Taiwan Strait.
Which it will.
So nothing, no warnings for commercial shipping. So, but it's a very impressive system, and I'm looking at it via the radar scope, and I agree with the rain bands to the northwest, but the bulk of the activity is clearly in front of it, tracking west or west southwest.
Right now it's a shade to the west southwest. I think earlier we had a indication of, I think it was 259 degrees bearing, which is, like I say, just south of west. Probably something similar to that right now, if not maybe a little bit more west southwest. So let me just get a little idea of distances from land. I know we had it on our left panel not long ago, but an update. Closest point of Okinawa right now, 261 kilometers. And it's now drawn 50 kilometers away from the Daito Islands, which it was literally passing closest to. It's making its closest approach to when we first went on the air 2 hours ago.
When is it supposed to slow down?
Soon. Let's look back at.
Soon.
Let's go back at the Jtwc forecast cone. They think that it will really start slowing down by the time we get to about 24 hours from now.
And it looks like the center is doing a 3-hour position updates?
Who's that?
JTWC?
I don't know. There might be. I'm sure. I think they still have a base in Okinawa, don't they?
Yeah, but let's looking at the radar via radar scope.
With me being live, I'm just keeping monitor of my live chat.
Let's just check some. Well, if we have some imagery. Back to some visibles, showing once again on the geocolor imagery this storm proceeding west-southwest. Looks like it's getting a little bit of that symmetry back on the satellite imagery. And just do some quick distance estimates for some other locations as well, as I'm sure people want to know. From Naha it is 312 kilometers. From Umami it is 292, so lower. From Miyakojima it is 571. From Ishigaki it is currently 690. And from Kagoshima on Kyushu it is 620. You won't feel it over there. It is a rather small storm still at this point. Its influence, you could say, you might argue its influence extends maybe 600 kilometers from end to end. Its entire influence, which for a typhoon is pretty tiny. But don't be fooled. In about 5 days' time, that size will at least triple and probably quadruple. It will be enormous by the time we get to the 5-day point, and you'll be able to see that for yourself on the visualization that we'll be showing you in about just over 10 minutes. You can keep sending in your comments and questions live to us. That's what we're here for in part. We, it's important for us to answer your questions, I feel. I've always felt. Otherwise, there's no guarantee that the information we're giving you is what you're actually looking for. Just like we have received a couple now. What are the chances of Hinnomnor entering the Philippine area of responsibility? I don't actually know, but I had it on good authority earlier that it probably will, from one of our other members. So I believe it will. And what else do we have there? There's an interesting comment wondering if we're wondering Hone will form in 2075. Right. Is this storm having an Eyewall replacement cycle? Looks like we've just witnessed one.
Yep. It's probably about to shut the full eye. It looks like it's collapsing.
Really?
Look on infrared.
Let's see your screen. Ooh, an interesting pattern there. It was starting to look better as well. I'm just not sure. Let's see if we can get a close-up on that infrared right now.
My infrared is showing that it's still...
There it is. Oh, the eye shrunk, all right. Do we have...
It's collapsed.
We've not looked at radar for a while, though.
Radar, let me pull it.
Please.
Give me a sec.
Because it's more, it's more important
radar,
than satellite.
It looks jagged.
Radar is more important than satellite, though. So when we can, we want to look at it.
Looking a little bit more jagged on here than it was.
Yeah, the windy is showing it like going into an oval size, then back up to a circular, and then back to an oval.
Yep, you can.
I am noticing that Eyewall collapse.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think now it's a full Eyewall replacement cycle, which is a good thing for it to weaken a little bit. However, again, it could just re-intensify back up to its status right now, so.
And how recent is this imagery?
This imagery right here that you're looking at is like 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Wow,
old.
okay.
Actually, excuse me.
We're looking as of recent 2250Z. 2250Z.
Is it?
Actually, excuse me. It's more like 10 minutes. Never mind.
So
But
at least 20
still-
minutes.
Still very relatively close.
I was
It
gonna
will,
say,
it will update. I wonder if I can get it updated quicker if I have this jumped a little faster.
it looks like the eye was trying to build back up, but then fail again. On the back side of the storm, but then it just failed.
Another comment here right now. Will Hinnomnor make a strong landfall on Korea? We can't rule it out just yet, or at all, in the next 5 days probably. The worst case scenarios are suggesting that there could be a Category 3 landfall on your doorstep along the southern coast of Korea. In terms of the Saffir-Simpson scale, do you think Hinnomnor will ever go back to being a Category 5? Will it weaken to a Category 3, then go back to being a Category 4 later this week? That second option is much more likely. The first option can't be completely ruled out, though.
I don't think that will happen. Like, I mean, it's showing that it will actually strengthen back up to a Cat 4, but it may change.
I am currently looking at maximum wind gusts within the storm via windy.com, and within the core of the storm right now I am measuring about a 92 knot peak gust right now via windy.com, which is about 106 miles an hour within the core of the storm.
And that will be at altitude as well. David, you're also showing us some radar imagery. Any thoughts and comments that you'd like to make about what you're seeing?
Check the JTWC wave height is 50 feet, so there's no way commercial shipping is going to be in the region of the two systems, but it's still looking very healthy, and you can clearly see where the rain activity is, and I think it might be west-southwest the direction, or a little bit southerly.
It's a bit of a southerly jog, actually, when you look at that again.
It's going southwest right now, from the looks of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is becoming more pronounced, that southwesterly movement.
It's wiggling, though, if you look at
and it's
like a long loop, though. So it could jog a little to the north, and maybe the Eyewall could do something to the tip of one of those islands.
And it's 3-minute update radar.
Looks like
it's really
like the are starting to get
for
out.
the Umami Islands, if I pronounce that correctly, I'm currently measuring at least at least 30 to 40 mile an hour wind gusts currently affecting those islands.
With the little ones, right? The little ones?
Yeah, it's basically direct west of the outer rain bands of.
Yeah, they're starting to get out of it. Probably a couple of more minutes or hours.
Umami Islands is actually to the west of this, so they're actually about to get imminently impacted by the storm.
Oops. What did I do?
Well, by one of its convective tops on the edge of it, but not the storm itself. Just looking at some more comments. When will the storm make landfall? What category will it be? Well, whether it makes landfall on any of these islands is a question mark. Probably the island with the highest chance of a landfall is actually going to be Miyakojima, which is on the very left-hand side of this screen here.
Nathan.
Yep.
I was gonna say from I don't know if I remember from yesterday. I forgot the GF, not the models of the model of the name. It was showing that it was gonna make landfall in one of these islands,
the small ones, but I think it must have changed. Actually, it
Yeah.
does show you one right down there.
I can
Yeah, that's
I can
it.
definitely say that there is some
Yeah.
there is some disagreement with how like I'm looking at this right now between the different wind gusts on both models currently. There definitely is some disagreement here. The Euro is showing stronger wind gusts on the Umami Islands, but the GFS is actually showing weaker, which is definitely surprising there.
95 knots nearing the islands, and then 105 going off of them.
Yep, that's on the JTWC forecast there, going down to high-end Category 2 according to them, then back to Category 4 on day 5 there. But once again, I gotta highlight how large that wind field gets. All these radials on the screen here showing the wind field, the outermost radial being gale force winds of 65 kilometers per hour sustain. And that grows 3.5 times from 70 miles outwards to 250.
I actually do have some live webcams if you want to go to my stream.
Absolutely.
Let's watch.
No problem.
Off of windy.com. It's up on my stream now.
It's loading for me. Oh, there we go. Oh, how'd you get that?
Windy.com.
Oh, that little camera on the, oh, I didn't see that. I thought it was just like a webcam you just turn on and shows your face.
This is live from Nago and Busi.
Mm-hmm.
I have got to fix my keybinds because for some reason it is glitching when I press F5. So I will fix that.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I thought it was just my Discord loading in.
Oh, you get the idea with that.
So, Nathan.
Yep.
Take a look at my screen, and yeah, well, we can see.
All right, there we go.
We
I
can
fixed it now.
see how long that eye was there for. Actually, a pretty decent amount of time, but now it actually filling it. So you could definitely see it wobbling as it was doing its replacement.
Very impressive.
Looks like there's right now.
Buzzsaw at 5.
There's right now like 14 feet waves right now in near one of those islands.
Honestly, doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, 14 feet, and
honestly, I would not be shocked if it's higher in places.
Right now, like near the center is like 29 feet or more.
I expect it to be higher.
I unfortunately do not have a live cam for Nyakujima, so that is unfortunate, but
in a few
we're
minutes,
definitely seeing.
Sorry.
That's. No, go ahead, Nathan.
I was just going to say in a few minutes we'll be taking a look at all of those model runs. Right now we're looking back at the latest satellite imagery, showing that the storm appears to be possibly deteriorating a little bit.
Yes, and also you can see that the southern depression being sucked in a little bit from the looks of it, at least.
Hmm.
The ATZ is showing a 919 millibar.
At least being pulled in a little bit. Maybe elongated would be correct term.
Isn't there any other system gonna form behind the typhoon?
Well, we're gonna find out in a moment.
Yeah, because I'm looking at
there's a on my
There's
stream.
a bit of
I have a
rotation
live
from the
shot.
outflow.
I have a live shot from the Umami main island airport here on my stream.
Oh,
let's see if we can see that.
This is from at least 1 hour, 41 minutes ago.
Okay.
I think they're trying to pick up winds.
So as a viewpoint, some clouds in distance. Can't tell if that's coming from. Probably is in the direction of the storm since it's morning there and the sun's in front of us. So that's east. So, yep, the storm's probably over there somewhere. I think.
Man, the time over there is so confusing to me. Like in the United States, we already know what time, but like for them, we don't know what time it gets dark and what time it gets morning.
All right, we've
Look
got
at
our
the satellite.
we've got our imagery now. Here we go. Okay, so what we have here on this new GFS 18Z run, first of all, is
looking at that.
suggesting that 13W already has tropical storm force winds in quite a large area there. You can see that. That's what it's suggesting on the initialization. I don't know whether that's true or not. If it is, then that's a tropical storm and it should get named. Meanwhile, you've got this big blob of Hinnomnor. The GFS resolution isn't good enough to resolve the eye properly, which is why it shows the eye looking pretty poor. We know that's not the case. Let's move forward. What happens to the storm's track? Let's play this slowly so you can see both of those storms there, and that one, 13W, getting wrapped up around Hinnomnor, and there it is getting sucked into this little area here. So it starts from around there into there, and the other one, Hinnomnor, goes down there, and it's all one big mess because they all have to do this little dance, and then Hinnomnor gets its bearings and then wiggles its way up that way towards the later period of the run. Now then,
Really
what
is
happens?
a nightmare of a run.
It is. What happens after that, though? Strengthening as it enters the south in the East China Sea, and there it is strengthening again to pressure in the 910s, and very powerful Category 4 there. In fact, that is really strong. How strong is that? 140 miles per hour. And this is the GFS, which usually lowballs as well because of the poor resolution. And off it goes. Look how large it is, how large the hurricane or the typhoon wind field is. And the major typhoon wind field as it moves on towards the Korean peninsula and slams right in there as a Category 3 and then goes beyond there towards where we go in here between Hokkaido and Russia, and off it goes post-tropical.
Still holding on
So
to the strength of typhoon.
to see that along here, extremely damaging potentially. Let's draw
Would you like
two
to
lines.
see
These
like to
areas
see-
here, let me just tell you about this first. So I've drawn those two lines, and you can see all in this area, according to that latest GFS run, that's typhoon force winds. So that is quite a large population in an area that can get destructive winds, if that model run is correct.
Yep.
What did
Wow.
you want to say?
Sorry about that. I just wanted to take a look at the thermodynamic profiles at its peak on the latest GFS run, if you don't mind. It's on my stream.
Just before we get on to that, there's another little system that decides it's going to try and form there as well later on during Hinnomnor's life. So that's
For
interesting.
the people that are asking, is it gonna be the size of tip? No.
Oh. Right, Patrick, that was you, wasn't it, who wanted to talk about this feature? Are you there?
Maybe half dead.
10. Probably he was just talking. His mic is turning on, but he ain't saying anything.
Patrick?
You killed him, Nathan. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh dear. Now, well, whilst we wait for him to come back, let's take a look at the precipitation and take a look
This is gonna be hell.
at this new GFS run, which is going insane with the precipitation again. Look at this black area, the void, basically. This
The fifth
is
dimension.
an entire area that is maxed out the scale
I
once
have to
again
interrupt you, Nathan.
at
We got
64
breaking
inches.
news here.
Click it. I want to see
64.
Yes, Ethan?
We've got some breaking news here. The National Hurricane Center has marked a new area of interest in the Atlantic with a 10% chance of development in the next 48 hours and a 30% chance in the next 5 days in the north central Atlantic.
We're gonna be on code orange for a while.
This is a
Ah,
new area of
that's
interest
the...
for the National Hurricane Center.
Yes, that's the next one that I've also been monitoring. That could be an interesting one. But
And
it's
one
going to
of them
be
just formed into a storm already.
out at sea, though, so we're not looking at that one
Is
right now.
that all of Hurricane Harvey? Like, I'm
Oh,
not sure.
shut up.
So, right, let me tell you about this. Let me tell you one thing first. It's out to sea. And
Yeah.
rainfall amounts are always much higher out at sea. So 64 inches, we know that's quite a lot. But I wouldn't be worried too much about that. But still to worry about, take a look at the values over Taiwan. 10 inches
Oh,
there, 8 inches there. One of the Japanese islands, I think that's Ishigaki, 8 inches. Miyakojima, 8 inches as well on this latest run. Southern tip of Okinawa, 8 inches. One of the other areas, I forget the name, Kumijima, about 12 inches. Luckily, at the moment, all these areas in between are where they're getting the highest amounts of rain, up towards 30 inches. That's still trending upwards, though. And it's really important, if there's a east or west deviation, then that 28 inches is going to get thrown through either Miyakojima or through Okinawa.
I have no word for that. Like, those are
Terrible.
Now, further north, just point out some other places here, around 12-13 inches along the southeastern part of Kyushu. And for the island of Jeju in South Korea, 11 inches here. And for the southeastern part of the mainland, 11, 10, 11, 12. Lots of rain there, that's 300 millimeters, and then extending all the way up the east coast into North Korea as well, 10 inches, 250 millimeters. A lot of rainfall, and that is on the current forecast. Uptrending, but that's quite staggering to see it reach the top of my scale for the second time. The original scale was 16 inches, and I made it extended to 64, thinking that we wouldn't beat that, but clearly we
Now
just
you have to do 128.
probably do.
this is just wow. Like, and like I should not say this is not the first time seeing that much rainfall, because yes, Harvey did do like something like that with like 60 inches of rain, but like that's over sea. But like imagine that on land. How much lives? Like, I should not be saying that. Like, how like so many destruction things can happen. A lot of things can happen if this was on land. Things happen really well.
And here's a crude depiction of what the radar reflectivity returns might look like during this storm's path as well, from, again, a rather low resolution GFS model. Watch it through here, the eye becomes more visible as it sinks southwards. It's just still loading in, so a little bit of patience required there. And you sort of get the gist of how that size growth happens. It just happens, basically. You can see it there, and it really extends out those bands very quickly when it's moving southwards and stalling and gets involved with that other tropical cyclone. And then eventually it's going to go back northwards, just waiting for the loop to go through. This one's loading much slower than the wind one did. Never mind, we'll go back to the wind one just to give you that idea again. Oh, try and get it to work. And just watch again how large the green areas are. Oh dear, what have I done now?
Broke everything.
Yep, I did something bad there. I don't know what that was.
I did. There you go.
Watch how large the green areas get. That's tropical storm force winds. 40 miles per hour, 65 kilometers per hour sustained winds.
Also, Nathan, want to update on the Eyewall replacement cycle taking place right now. The eye is about to fill in fully with at least a tad of convection.
Yep. And you can see at this point the tropical storm force winds extend outwards. I've pressed the right... What's the right button here? Nope, it's not that one. I always forget which one it is. It's this one.
10,000 years later,
Nope, it's this
Nathan
one.
will finally figure it out.
So here you can see just how large that wind field is, and now it's not giving me a distance return. I just drew a line. Fantastic. It's supposed to tell me
Great
how
job.
long it is. Never mind.
Falling apart over there. Need
Yeah,
help?
I don't know. It's supposed to tell me how long that is, but you can tell it's quite a distance. If I just
From
try
what?
and figure
what
that
are
out
you trying to
manually,
do right
how
now?
large that wind field gets, you could be talking potentially 1,500 kilometers from one end to the other. So that's how large this storm gets. Off it goes. Where does it go after that as an extratropical cyclone, just in case anyone's interested? It's off to Alaska, of course. Through
With
the
tropical
Aleutian,
storm.
through the Aleutian Islands, still traceable for a long time.
Yep.
What?
Off it goes. What?
Whee!
That's normal.
There's no way that made it all the way over there.
That's quite
Nathan,
normal.
would you mind checking live output? I am ready. Had to go do something.
Oh right, yes. Let's talk about it.
Oh, and another system form, but
Alrighty, so basically what we're looking at here, what the environment could like within the core of Super Typhoon Hinnamnor, right as it makes landfall near South Korea. Now, basically what I'm noticing is that there's a very moist adiabatic, what you're
is it my
Audio just died.
he's talking?
it basically indicates a lot of moisture here. And basically, what else is that you have a lot of shear, or SRH, or hillicity, which basically, usually with tropical cyclones like these, you would normally see brief tornadic circulations. And if this sounding were to basically represent a realistic forecast for the environment at this given time, given the moist adiabatic overlap, whatever you want to call it here. Usually tropical cyclones don't need a lot of cape as well. They usually already have all the energy from the warm sea surface temperatures, and given the high amount of shear with some of these, you can definitely see some tornadic circulations, and usually you do see, like I said earlier, you do see tornadic circulations with tropical cyclones. So some tornadoes are maybe possible for South Korea within the most
tornado.
intense.
The tornado threat is there for practically the whole track.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's definitely there, and it's definitely considerable. Although,
Especially when it stalls a little bit. Those islands to the north on the right hand quadrant, you'll see the chance for those and water spouts.
That would
it's
be a worry.
when you see it, you'll usually see it in the front right quadrant of a tropical cyclone, which is usually where it produces the most water spouts or tornadoes. And given the environment that the storm is in and will be in, we can see a very considerable tornado threat, along with the more major threat, of course, being flooding and damaging wind gusts, obviously. But there is a considerable tornado threat given the amount of shear and the usually tropical cyclones. Yeah, like you. I cannot speak. I am tired.
Sorry.
It's a bit like that today, isn't it?
Yep.
Oh, are you finished?
Yeah, I'm
give
done.
up.
I give up.
All right, fair enough.
And it's the GFS 100 something hours out, so it's always not reliable.
Yeah, but it does give you a little indication of what a bad case scenario might be. I wouldn't even say it's the worst case scenario, but yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say, Nathan, is it normally for like if you want to see my screen, you can. I'm just showing like on the ramp satellite. For some reason, like it's showing like on this part, it's like starting to get sucked in, and then starting to look moreish like like this kind, like about something like this. Like it's starting to like lose some of its convection and start to get sucked in.
Oh yeah, that's
Like,
something that I mean that's interesting. It would normally denote maybe a gap in the western eyewall, but as far as we saw on radar, there isn't one.
Okay, yeah, because I just caught its attention of this kind, like it's like showing some kind of like I don't know what it is showing, but like it just looks like it's like so perfect, and then all of a sudden it just starts to get sucked in.
Of course, it could be something that's happening at a higher level than the surface, so there is also that possibility.
That far from it, somewhere around there, like higher wind shear up there. That's weird. It was red down here earlier. Probably it must have changed. Oh, I think no, I don't think it's that reason of a wind shear up here.
I think they update every 6 hours.
Yeah.
So that's showing a slight decrease of that wind shear there.
Yeah. It's lost everything. The eyewall has collapsed. Yeah, I just wanted to show you that. I was not sure if
Absolutely.
you saw it. Yeah.
Another question there, is this storm usual for this time of year?
Kinda.
It's a tough question. This storm in general is a little bit rare, on the rare side. I would say that if this storm was going to happen at any time of year, it probably would be in August. There was a somewhat similar storm, that was actually wackier than this one in 1924, or 1924, which I think happened in August, if I'm not mistaken, that did about 4 or 5 loops around Okinawa and the vicinity, and was a category 4, I think, a strong category 4. So that this one could draw some comparisons to that one, although its track is actually a little bit more straightforward than that one that I mentioned. But I would say that August would be the time for this, because you're more likely to get the crazy tracks in August than in any other month, quite honestly. Because of all of these competing systems. And let's not forget, this big weird part of the track where it's going to loop around down there is pretty much because of that other system 13W.
Then, Nathan, adding to that, I cited a news report earlier where the La Nina has been officially declared by Japan, and I'm just wondering how this La Nina is impacting what we're seeing in the Westpac. And the biometeorology down here is drawing closer to officially we're on La Nina alert, but Japan, I think they've already declared a La Nina along with the United States.
And not a typical La Nina either.
No.
Which is another thing that what's the word that I'm looking for?
Not the mistake.
You know when you've got a word that you can't think of. Anyway, makes more difficult our predictions for what will happen for the rest of this year, because we've really not got any history to go on.
I support that. I really do.
Well,
I know it's going to be bad down here. It is in here in Australia. It is going to be extremely bad.
Yeah,
what
down
way?
here in the States, I mean, tropics are waking up. I mean, tropics are just waking up, and that's all I gotta say, because we don't know when the next anything will form, really.
It's really hard to work out what will happen for the rest of the season in the Atlantic. I'm still pretty sure that in the Western Pacific we're going to get a very busy later part of the season. And that's not just because it's been so... It's been a little bit quiet. It's not been that quiet. It's been a little bit quiet. We've still had a few strong storms already before this one. But I think it is going to go a bit nuts towards the end of the year.
Nathan, I want to make sure this is the location of the center of 13W. I just put in gold because I'm seeing like some of the
Let's have a
circulation
look.
right there. I just put it like yeah.
I'm
Like
not sure either at this time. I've not
Yeah,
been
it's like-
watching that very much. It's not going to be far away anyway from there.
It's like I find it like right here, and like
You'll-
I just wanted to say you
well,
can
if-
show.
Well, if you switch to visible, you'll be able to. I'm sure you'll see it.
If
Go
wait, is the
to-
sun up already?
Go to the red visible near the top.
Oh, there it is. Normally I used that kind of the one I was showing. Come on, play.
The rainbow.
There you
Oh, yeah,
go.
right.
looking
There
good.
you go. Quite easy to
Yeah.
see that rotating center there.
Yeah, you can see most of it's getting sucked into the storm. Like, see, there's a bit of a stretched up right here. Mostly it's like all getting swallowed up by this. Oh yeah, that's weird. Have you noticed about this? I don't know what this like.
A swirly thing to the east.
Yeah,
Hmm.
most of the GFS is picking up on something on here.
I don't think it is, but I guess we'll keep watching.
Yeah.
It's got some loose rotation, but nothing much else to its name. Let's get some more questions. You can send your messages in on our live chat. If you're watching on YouTube, start your message with Force 13 all in text. Will Tropical Depression 5L form this week?
5L. Do we mean 91L?
91 now.
Well, I mean, that's what some people think will come of it, 5L. Well, I think it's got a decent chance. Obviously, it's got a high chance in the Atlantic right now. So
It is now, via the 8 p.m. advisory, it is currently at 60-80. Most likely scenario that it will form into Danielle in the next several days and could potentially reach hurricane status. However, it will most likely not pose any significant threats to U.S. mainland. However, some rough surf and rough seas are most likely within the southeastern region of the Atlantic as it moves out to sea.
Yeah, they just upgraded up to a 60% chance in the next 48 hours, still an 80% chance in the next 5 days.
And interestingly, they're actually hinting at that North Central Atlantic system to actually gradually develop, which I thought it was never going to, but I guess it has chances to do it as it moves eastward towards.
Well, that's a different system now that they've tagged.
Well, that's.
Heading more towards the United Kingdom side of things.
Oh, for disturbance too, the one that I think that just came off the coast of Africa has a 20% chance in the next 48 hours and a 40% chance in the next 5 days.
Well, we'll have more discussion on things in the Atlantic in our tropical weather bulletin in 15 minutes, which is when we take a look at a wider view of the whole world. But just for the time being, we're still keeping it pretty locked on Hinnomnor right now. Still a powerful Category 4 storm on the Saffir-Simpson scale, a super typhoon. And we're still ready to take more questions. How big is Typhoon Hinnamnor now? Let's have a look. If you talk about its whole influence, then you might say about 600 kilometers. If you're talking about its main rain core, then maybe 250 kilometers. In terms of its wind, I think at the moment it's about 250 kilometers as well. Something like that.
Which isn't that big.
No, not huge. Weather Cat says, do you think there will be a Category 5 in 2022? I assume you mean after this. I think we will be in store for at least another Category 5 in the Western Pacific. In other basins, I could not be too sure. I think famous last words, I think we won't get one in the Atlantic this year.
We'll at least see NOAA is forecasting at least 3 to 7 major hurricanes still. So it's not likely, but it's definitely a possibility. I mean, anything's possible, really.
I'm back.
Yep. So, the general movement of this storm is still west-southwest. Let's see if we can get some more proper rapid scan on the
Also,
water
the
vapor
eye
imagery.
seems to cleared out again.
You think?
Oh,
On infrared, it's cleared again.
Not sure.
I'll take a look at it. I have it.
Tropical Tidbits is saying that.
Here we are with some imagery.
Yep, I see that. I see that. Yeah.
Oh wow! On the last image of mine, it just completely closed up.
Let's not be knee-jerk on any of this. It's toing and froing right now, in and out, and really spinning around. Very overly shaped still. Let's talk to Christian, who's just joined us right now, if you're available. How are you
Becoming more
today?
circular again.
And what do you think of Typhoon Hinnamnor right now?
I'm good, thank you for asking. As for Hinnomnor, well, I woke up this morning and it had achieved, I think, its peak, which, if I'm correct, according to internal documents, it was like 150, I think, in knots.
I'm not
correct.
sure they... Did they?
Well,
I thought they only went 145.
oh, did they? Okay, I could be wrong then, but
I don't
either
know.
way,
Yeah, I was seeing
yes.
some things. I was seeing some
I-
things that did hint at 150.
Yeah, either way, it was category 5, and I'm just there thinking, oh wow, it did it. As of now, as far as I'm hearing, it's back down to category 4 status. I'm just secretly hoping it doesn't reach category 5 again. But, yeah, I mean, it's not great news for those who are near to the system right now. Obviously, if you are in the path of this system, make sure your preparations are complete, because this is something that is not to be taken as a joke, really, because this is an incredibly powerful super typhoon headed your way.
A Moment of Lovely sends a wonderful message of support, and really you shouldn't have. We appreciate the help that you've been putting in on our moderating team on our live event today. So thank you, as well as your comments thanking our team helping out during this event. And that's what we're here for all the time. We are doing our best with all the resources that we have, which are sometimes quite limited and stretched, to produce the best coverage on these storms. And hopefully our history says that. We've been doing coverage on tropical cyclones around the world for 10 years now. At one point it was only me at the beginning, until a few years later. I'm sure we can discuss that another time. David, I'm sure, is watching the International Space Station closely. It's coming in for its first pass, which I think will be quite a way away from the storm, but we'll have a look at it anyway when it starts to transmit the video, just to see what we can see. I don't think we'll see much the first time around. It will be the second time, which is probably going to be... I think it's going to end up being a bit after the end of our stream that it will actually pass, unfortunately. I think we are going to miss out. But if we do see something after we go off the air, we'll record it and put it on our channel. But there we go. Tropical Weather Bulletin coming up in 10 minutes, where we'll discuss Hinomnor as well as everything else around the world. Let's take a look at some more of that radar imagery with Daniel. There it is right now, headed southwestwards, and looking a little bit leggy on the northeastward side, although that could be a trick of the radar, but I'll still maintain that Eyewall is looking pretty decent overall. Some more questions here. Will Hinomnor absorb Tropical Depression 13? It's a good question. it will have a big impact on what happens to the storm. If it does, then it will stall for longer, and if it doesn't, it'll be doing more of that hook motion that the Jtwc is forecasting. A question there, why did it weaken down to Category 4? It might have got a little bit of shear. I think it dealt with a bit of dry air in general, but it's quite hard to say really. Eyewall replacement cycle, of course, being the kicker for the time being.
JTWC still has it at Category 5, 140 knots.
I don't think they will for much longer.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And also, Nathan, check live output and keep an open mind in what I said.
Give me a moment, because we have the International Space Station feed right now. There's not that much you can see there. There's a few clouds. You can see a little bit on the right hand side, some sort of circular patterns almost. That's some small bits of cloud that are probably loosely associated with the typhoon well to its east. This camera, when the space station is making its downward transits, which is what it's currently doing, we're looking southeastwards, so north is at about the 8 o'clock position here, and on your right, well off camera, will be the typhoon, probably not far off the horizon, but of course it doesn't look like we're not going to see it here, but that's a sign of things to come. In about an hour and a half it will pass over the typhoon, we think, or maybe a little bit off to the right. But that is a live view from the International Space Station. I always like to promote it. It's got great imagery. I think it's fantastic that we have it up there. From what I heard, I think there's rumblings of it being shut down now or something. I'm not well into all this.
Then luckily I'm here because I know
Yes.
all about space.
Please.
It's gonna deorbit in 2030. That's the current plan.
Right, and what happens after that then?
New space station will be built by other companies at that point. NASA will be on the moon with their moon base by that point. So that would kind of be like the next station on the moon. But yeah, that's our next future station on the surface of the moon and Mars with Elon Musk's SpaceX's Starship.
Right.
But another space station will be built, I think, by Blue Origin in Dynetics.
Well, as long as they have cameras on it, we can keep looking at the typhoon.
Yeah.
There's another low pressure system by the looks of it over there. Just wonder if that might be that circulation that we were talking about earlier that's well to the east of the typhoon.
But Nathan, if you ever have questions on space stuff, just ask me.
Oh, we know. We know. Let's go back to your radar, Daniel, and tell us what your thoughts are right now.
Well,
last frame looks good.
Yeah, it looks better for sure. That's all I can really say about it. It's starting to be still a little oval shape, but hey, it's getting there. It's fixing itself. It's a fixer-upper for sure. Sure.
Yeah. There's the storm once again on the water vapor imagery. And in a few moments' time, we'll be moving over to the tropical weather bulletin. Some more comments here. Let's see. Is Hinnomnor likely to grow a bit more before hitting North Korea? Very specific question there. It's going to grow all the way up until it makes that landfall, and possibly beyond even. What will happen really is that it grows and grows, and its energy goes down. Obviously, it's being dispersed as a general rule when it moves through that area. Will Hinnomnor hit Alaska? The remnants will should get to Alaska.
Post-tropical at that point.
And if it sounds odd to you, most typhoons do manage it. It's not that rare. If there were cameras on the moon, the typhoon would probably be small. Yes, it would be tiny.
It would be tiny. You needed like a 12-inch telescope.
Yep.
to
Thoughts
clearly
on
see it. Actually, only a 6-inch. Actually,
thoughts on whether how do you know the thoughts on whether the typhoon will make landfall in China or Japan or Korea? Well, it's not going to make landfall in China, but you could get tropical storm force winds. Japan.
Nathan, how do I know?
Japan
because
and Korea.
She does scale Jupiter and Saturn.
What?
I've taken pictures of Jupiter and Saturn with my 6-inch telescope.
Yeah, but you've not been on. But you've not been on the moon.
But if you roughly calculate it with the pictures that we've seen, you can probably see it with your naked eye fairly
right,
well.
Okay. Thoughts on whether Japan or Korea though is still up for potential landfall later on. That's towards 6 or 7 days though. At this point, we're going to take a short break. Next up is the Tropical Weather Bulletin, and we'll have the latest on all tropical cyclones around the world. I will be presenting it. The information has been sent in by Ethan, so I've got no idea what I'm about to present, but I will tell you all about it when I get to see it. In a few minutes' time, we'll find out together with the Tropical Weather Bulletin. Stay tuned. This is Force 13 Live. We'll have a lot more in Hinnomnor as well. Don't worry, and we'll be back in a few moments. Stay tuned. Our live coverage will continue in a moment. You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Tonight, Hinnomnor temporarily weakens, but is still a powerful Category 4. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Live Tropical Weather Bulletin for August 31st. Here we are right now, code red, situation for Typhoon Hinnamnor, which we've been covering live for several hours, a strong Category 4 near Okinawa. We also have Tropical Depression 13W, which has formed not long ago to its south by around 400 miles. Elsewhere around the world there are no storms active. However, on day 92 of hurricane season in the Atlantic, there are two areas of interest, one at high chance approaching the Lesser Antilles and one at a moderate chance near the Cape Verde Islands moving offshore Africa. These two systems could form. In the Western Pacific, we have a system there at 70%. Some reason it says Tropical Depression 10 at the bottom. I think Ethan messed up, unless there is one. I don't think there is. But a high chance for a new cyclone forming and a low chance further east. In the Western Pacific, these two systems that you can see in more clarity now, Super Typhoon Hinnamnor and Tropical Depression 13W, which are now going to circle each other as Hinnamnor moves towards the southwest and stalls. In the southern hemisphere, a 30% chance remains on a potential area of interest in the southwest Indian Ocean. Would be a very interesting other feature to see after we already had one storm so far. And now an abrupt end, I'm sure, and straight back to our coverage here on usually we have properly synced tropical weather bulletins, but obviously in these special measures right now with this storm we're a little bit less cohesive. But that was the intro to our tropical weather bulletin, and the main feature of course is Typhoon Hinnamnor, but we'll also have plenty of time to chat about other features that are going on around the world and take your questions on them too. First of all, let's give any new viewers an update on Hinnamnor, which is a very powerful Category 4 storm, nearly a Category 5 still, and moving southwesterly. I believe still at this point the Jtwc still have it at Category 5 status, and rumours that they might be keeping it at the next update. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but stranger things have happened. The more you look at that imagery, guys, what do we think? Let's introduce my team. We've got Patrick, Daniel, David, Christian, and Jose. Hello to all of you once again for another hour of coverage here.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi.
Now then, what do we think? Do we think this still has a chance to be a Category 5 at the present time?
There is that slight chance, but I'm fairly sure most.
I give
how
it
do
a
I say this?
30% chance.
I'll give it a
Sure. I mean,
20.
sure. I was gonna say most other agencies are probably gonna go with Category 4 by now, especially since they should start releasing their Zero Zulu advisories by this point, if they haven't done so already.
Yep, and we'll probably get that information a little bit later on. My name's Nathan Foy here in the studio, presiding over all of our proceedings this evening. Of course, this evening, our time here at Force 13 HQ. Of course, it is already a bright morning over in Japan ahead of this strong typhoon in places like Okinawa, which is still on the edge periphery there, in between clouds by the looks of things. Daniel, on your screen, on that infrared imagery. Could you, did you have that radar still there as well?
Yes. Sorry, I was just doing stuff for my own stream.
I just wanted to check whether there's any rain over land yet. Not quite, but not far away.
Not far away. I can check up here. Ooh, a little bit. and that just crashed. Right.
Yikes.
It does it from time to time if I move it around a lot. It's fine. It's very quick at getting back up, but a little sprinkle on that little island of very, very far bands.
I see it.
But so far the main bands have still not reached it.
And you can still see its general movement is... Looks southwest.
Looks southwest.
Now. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's gonna do its little downward motion and kind of do whatever it wants to do with its little stall motion of a loop-de-loop, and we don't necessarily know what it will do after that. It's a little uncertain. But go up north somewhere.
At about 22, we'll take a look at all of the model runs around the world and have a proper look at all of that, like we did in the last hour. But in the meantime, we're mainly discussing this storm, and of course, we'll mention everything else that's going on. If you have any questions about what's going on around the world, please let us know, and we might be able to sort of streamline the conversation a little bit more. Let's look at a few other areas, though, before we continue. Here is the Atlantic right now. If that's the area of interest near Cape Verde, there it is, yeah, blowing up a little bit. Not looking great, though, when you look at that imagery.
Which one?
The eastern one.
Oh,
Just off Africa there.
I should say something about 91. Recon was flying in it a little bit ago.
Really?
It was not necessarily assigned invest, but it was in there. And what I can see, give me a sec, I'm just gonna check from flight level. Flight level winds they kind of went into the convection burst, and the max is 20 to 30 knots.
Right.
So it's still relatively weak.
If you're wondering, well, it's not that weak, but if you're looking for it there, it's right on the bottom right hand corner here on this image. That is the Invest 91L. Any signs of a center forming might be just off the imagery there, but it doesn't look like to me.
Can't quite pinpoint necessarily. It is rotating, but it's hard to find the center of it. Because it's still very disorganized. But at least we can see a rough rotation in it.
So yeah, is that all we need to talk about regarding 91?
Yeah, still looking depressing, like my soul. What?
Further towards the west...
there's not really much need for that, but thank you.
Further towards the west, there's quite a bit of convection blowing up in the central Caribbean Sea now, just to the southwest of Jamaica. That was that other area that we were thinking about that might have had a chance of forming in the Gulf. It's still there, but it's been dropped from everything. Check the Eastern Pacific. You can see a little bit of loose rotation starting to establish itself now from that other area of interest that has a high chance. Look towards the east, and it may well be that Caribbean convection that ends up becoming an Eastern Pacific storm later down the line towards the end of the 5-day period. But in the meantime, we're mainly watching this already active Eastern Pacific system that looks like it's going to become our next tropical storm and start its run on the naming list again after quite a lengthy pause now in the Eastern Pacific.
About time.
Yeah, so that's rather interesting. The Western Pacific, of course, as we've been going on about for a long time now, rightly so, of course, with this enormous, in strength at least, not quite in size yet, Typhoon Hinnamnor, which is now going to be paralleling Okinawa, moving southwesterly. And as you can see here, Tropical Depression 13W to its south, producing only little amounts of convection because it's being sheared enormously by the outflow of the typhoon. What's going to happen eventually is that they're going to play cat and mouse for a bit. This is the Fujiwara effect. and the typhoon will swivel down towards the southwest, whilst the depression will jog along towards the northeast, round the storm, orbiting it, as a matter of fact, around the northern side. And there's two scenarios in play at the moment. One is that it throws itself either into the coast of China eventually or into Taiwan, and the typhoon sort of dodges it and then continues northwestwards. Or the tropical depression completely gets mangled in and around the typhoon, causing it to stall whilst it sorts itself out for quite a while, 2 or 3 days, and then it starts to go north. So it will be fascinating to see what exactly happens with this. You don't normally see... These are, I guess, unique situations where you really don't know which effect is going to come out on top. And there's no way of really knowing, I don't think. So, interesting to see what will happen next. Those two systems currently around 400 miles apart, from what I heard. Let's see if we can bring David in. What are your latest thoughts, David? Anything that you've been picking up round and about?
Looks like sorry, I've been away from the studio and I missed the fly over the ISS.
You didn't miss much. I caught it and it didn't show as much.
You caught it, right? So hopefully tomorrow we'll get a better view, but it's still looking good from the satellite imagery. I have the Rainbow and the Vorlac and all those other ones, and it's still looking good, but as I said earlier, it remains a monster. It's not going to disappear. And I've been following the on the chat and whether it will re-strengthen. But we need to keep in mind the complexities of this system, the interaction with the other system, and wave height, 50 feet, it might come down to probably about 45, but it's going to be with us for a few more days. And Nathan, I remember when we were live, and I mentioned this yesterday, me and Cut and the International Space Station flying over from one side to the other side, and I think it was about 10 minutes of solid viewing. That's how big the system was. Yes, we actually picked up one side, and we just... But the diameter was huge. I don't know.
Well, this one will be eventually, of course. It isn't yet, but as we've mentioned before on our live stream, let's just actually go to the Jtwc forecast cone to show you what we've been talking about. Here is their latest cone. As you can see, they're expecting that hook motion, and that implies that 13W will scoot around its east, and then their paths will... I wish I could draw on this, unfortunately I can't, but their paths will cross twice basically, and 13W will dissect that track on the northern side, move through, say, maybe Miyakojima or a bit north of there, and then curve round into, probably into Taiwan. And then the typhoon will get going again, move northerly, and into the East China Sea. The JTWC expect that this storm will weaken to 95 knots, which is high in Category 2, and then strengthen back up again when it enters the East China Sea, back to Category 4 status, and then move north-northeast. Want to mention, as we've mentioned many times on tropical weather bulletins, that the sea surface temperatures are very warm in these areas. They're around 2 or 3 degrees above average for the time of year, and so I am not surprised at all to see this part of the Western Pacific blow up, because the conditions were absolutely ripe for a substantial typhoon, and lo and behold, there is one. I think it was actually probably a matter of when. But still a huge amount of uncertainty about where exactly it will go. It may not have gone unnoticed that the cone for this on the JTWC is absolutely enormous. There is a difference between the JTWC cone and the National Hurricane Center cone, for those who are maybe a little confused. A National Hurricane Center cone from the US National Hurricane Center shows a 66% chance of where the storm's center will pass within. And this, I think, is a 90% chance of tropical storm force winds. So the entire wind field basically is contained within the cone, and that's why it's so much larger. And to be honest, it's probably makes more sense, because you'll be impacted by the storm possibly if you're in that cone. I don't think it is 90% actually. It's probably a much lower number. Oh, why has it done that? Well, that was clever. We don't want that. Force 13 Live, it is, if you needed another suggestion there. But then it gets even more uncertain after that 5-day period, when it moves towards either Japan or Korea. I feel that one of those places is going to get a landfall, and it will probably be a Category 3 landfall if that happens. But that's what we know right now. It's going to be a very uncertain 5 days. We're now joined by Joey. Hello, welcome aboard to tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin.
Hello.
Any thoughts on Hinnomnor throughout the course of today? It's sent us through quite a few twists and turns already.
Yeah, remarkable system with the amount of rapid intensification that it's done over the past day or two. Obviously, it is quite difficult to track when it's a very prone to eyewall placement cycles, which is currently ongoing within the system. Regardless, going to bring high amounts of rainfall to the island of Okinawa. Strong winds as well. So definitely something to look out for if you are in those areas, not only Okinawa, but parts of northern Taiwan and China as well.
Ito as well.
It moved through the small Daito Islands earlier on, within about 20 kilometers of one of those islands. The population on those islands is only around 2,000, but still that is an active population there, and they will have felt extremely powerful winds. That being said, these areas do often get strong typhoons, and in some places I imagine this storm will be more remembered for its rainfall potential rather than its wind. At the moment, it's suggesting that the storm will pass between, or the highest rain totals will be between the islands, but we're still expecting that maybe some areas on land could get to 20 inches, which is 500 millimeters over the next 7 days, so it's quite severe. We'll take a look again at the GFS model a little bit later on, which is depicting, well, basically it's off the scale how much rain will fall at sea, over 64 inches. So we'll look at that again later on. Christian?
Hello?
I thought you were going to say something.
I've been muted this whole time.
I think that was me.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, it's fine. So basically, what I wanted to recap here, what I think I brought up a couple hours ago, back when we were majorly covering this typhoon, 20 to potentially, what we were saying, 40 inches earlier, with if this stalls, which it will definitely indeed stall, and if we could expect 40 inches for certain areas, that combined with low elevation, mountains, and topographic lift, you're going to be having excessively to extremely excessively heavy rainfall recedings and that can contribute to, or actually runoff, excuse me, not recedings. That will basically contribute to major landslides and some pretty life-threatening flash flooding. So there's a lot of threats coming with this monster, and all you have to do is just hope for the best, but prepare for the worst.
Looking once again at the radar from Daniel's screen, showing that the yellow areas defining that eye wall are coming in and out.
I think that's just the edge of radar being a little... because on other radars it's more consistent, like Windy's.
Interesting.
Also, you're seeing it being more circularized now.
Yeah, I think we are. This might be making a comeback again here. When you look at that satellite imagery as well.
I think it's more like pinhole eye now.
A little bit. Look at the close-up once again.
Might be a bit bigger than a pinhole, but definitely a very small eye.
It's gotten small. A little bit ragged. Convection building up again around it, though. So this storm is certainly not giving up on its run to reattain Category 5 status, as we believe it was earlier on, and indeed still is, according to the JTWC. Joey, I wonder what your thoughts were about the storm's strength earlier on. How strong did you think it was?
Hard to say, but I personally put it at about 165 miles an hour. And that's simply based on its appearance at the time. But obviously it has degraded since then, due to a possible eyewall replacement cycle. But looking at radar, it doesn't look like it's going through one at this moment in time. There were signs that a second eyewall was trying to build up, but not looking too much like that picture anymore. So, and as you said, it does look like on radar, at least, it is trying to make some sort of comeback within its inner core. So we're going to have to see how it pans out.
What do you think of that, Daniel? You were the first to comment on that potential second eye wall.
Well, you mentioned it, and then I looked at it, and yeah, right now it's trying, from what I'm seeing. It's not as defined as it was earlier. I'm looking on Windy's radar. Give me a sec. Screen share that. But it's showing kind of what I'm talking about.
That is interesting to look at.
If it's a secondary eyewall, or it's just banding.
There's much more of a moat in those earlier images.
Yes. But it looks like two kind of banding around each other.
Could be concentric eye walls.
Looking at the... Go on.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just looking at the RB top colour, Nathan, and it looks like there's a bit more red in the eye. The eye was closing, but looking at all of the floaters, it definitely hasn't closed in, or let's say the eye has collapsed, but I would say that yes, it has shrunk in size a bit, but it's still maintaining the eye. I'm looking at a little bit of red. I don't know what the colour is in the inner eye. What would the red represent?
I can't remember what enhancement that is by name either. So
But it's still looking healthy. Sorry.
Yeah, of course. Let's check another look, another type of imagery that we can look at here.
Nathan, look in live output. Tristan, my it's DMing me stuff, and he DM'd me this photo, which kind of shows the outer
Ooh.
eye wall
Mm.
more apparent in his imagery. I think it's
Wow.
Japan's imagery.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's more apparent in that image. So maybe show the people that.
Damn, that looks
because
good.
it's- It does, especially around that main eye wall.
Yeah, that's actually quite impressive. Actually,
Yeah, it's very intense. Possible thunderstorm activity. I'm looking on Windy for any lightning that could be happening around
So
that.
the main
I've
thing
seen
that we're
some lightning.
looking at
Oop.
here could be that the inner eye wall may be trying to persist itself throughout the replacement cycle, and that's why it's not as clear as to what it's doing at the moment. Go on, Tanya.
Yeah.
We're looking at some new visible imagery here. Let's see if we can increase the viewing quality there. Shows it off a
It's
little bit
looking
more.
good.
Always look good from a visible perspective, usually these
Yeah.
storms. We had a few more questions here. Is it a storm inside a storm, says Weathercat.
No.
I'm not sure what to
No.
say about that. Well, you see they've said no. So, are the strongest winds in the Eyewall? Always. They're always in the Eyewall. Sustained
Getting
winds,
more
at
imagery
least.
from Tristan with that radar, and the most recent thing shows that the main eye wall kind of degrades on the north west side. Let me put that in live output.
Another comment there. Will Javier be a threat to Mexico if the system forms? Probably not. I frown upon pre-naming, though. That is the next name on the list. Let's take a look at this next image that we've received.
Oh.
What do you think of that one?
Degraded.
It does look like the inner eye wall starting to give up finally.
But we said that an hour or two ago.
And then it rebounded.
Yeah.
It's like no, I'm still here. You know, it's hard to say if that's weakening or is it just gonna be doing that on and off. That's depending on probably convection around that eye wall. So
let's look at some more imagery around the world now then. Here is a better look now at the Atlantic Ocean and Invest 91L, which has, according to the National Hurricane Center, an 80% chance of becoming our next tropical cyclone. We've only had 3 this year so far, 3 tropical storms, which is pretty slow. It is now the latest D-named storm, bearing in mind we've not had one yet, but it's the latest date that we've not had a D-named storm, say, since 1994. Which was from before our 1995 onwards active period. So quite a record, that is. What do we think of 91L? Will it become our next storm at long last?
possibly, probably though.
Just wonder if any voices that haven't spoken about it yet want to say anything. Oh, they're all content. All right then. Well, there it is. If anyone has any questions about 91L, I'm sure our team would be absolutely thrilled to respond.
Of course.
Now then, back to another type of imagery for Hinnomnor. There it is on the water vapor imagery now, which sometimes shows you a little bit better the structure on occasion. Obviously the eye is quite clearly visible there, and as a matter of fact there is a little bit of a gap outside that inner eye wall visible on satellite now, so that's quite interesting to see. On
the radar that I'm looking at, it does look like the inner eye wall is continuing to degrade, and then the outer eye wall is really starting to pick up itself now. So interesting. But then that also makes me question if that if Hinnomnor can't finish this Eyewall replacement cycle, will it hinder its future intensity? We'll have to see if the inner Eyewall just continues to persist without that outer Eyewall actually becoming, dominant. What could we expect with its intensity? Could it underperform what models are showing for it to be in the South China Sea?
Let's see, there's some more comments right now. People asking about retirement. I'm not going to answer questions like that. Another comment, is there something called a Madoki La Nina? Well, I call it a Madoki La Nina right now. Obviously Madoki El Nino is a term that exists, and Madoki is a Japanese word which I believe means something like semi or quasi, so kind of. So it really can be used in that sense for a La Nina as well, because I think it actually means in a different way. So we do have a La Nina which is different to normal, unorthodox. So I would definitely call it a Madoki La Nina. And as we've mentioned before tonight, it's leading us to major paths of uncertainty across the tropics this year, considering how rare a Madoki La Nina is, in that we haven't seen one since high resolution sea surface temperature anomaly maps started in 1984, so a long time in which we've not had one. Which means it's a nightmare for forecasting the rest of the season. The Atlantic might stay dead, the Western Pacific might go absolutely nuts late season. That's what indications are currently showing us. The East Pacific might outperform the lot. I doubt it now, but it looked like that for a while, didn't it?
It did.
Yep.
So I hope that answers your question nicely. Another comment there, will 91L hit Bermuda and move on? Last I saw on the models, it will be a close pass to Bermuda. We'll check it all out in about 7 minutes time when we take a look at all of the models. And that means I'll be on a monologue for about 15 minutes and the team won't be able to say anything. So get your messages in now, team. But we continue to look at this radar imagery of Hinnomnor from Tanyel, which is showing... Oh no, it's going to hang on for as long as it can, as far as I can see, that inner eye wall.
Yep. I don't know if it's difference in radar resolutions, but on the radar that I'm looking at on radar scope, the inner eye was actually slightly open now. So, I'll try and get a screen share of it if I can.
David, have you still got yours?
Also, there's some lightning visible
yes,
on
I'll
that.
bring it up.
Is it in the outer eyewall, Daniel?
Oh, I see that, yeah.
The lightning on the inner eye wall.
Oh.
And the outer.
Just outside the inner eye wall.
Well, yeah, on the outskirts, but still the eye wall.
I just got a strike from
on the stronger part of the eye wall.
Let's have a look at David's imagery and see how that compares. Showing quite a bit of a gap on the north side of the northern eye wall, out beyond it, I should say. But the eye wall itself appears to be still intact.
Yes.
Although struggling a bit, but intact. Was that loud? Just repositioning myself in the chair here. I've been sat here for 3.5 hours.
But that's not the longest
no, it isn't.
session you've
Thank you. It certainly is. Right, let's take a look at some more questions whilst we keep looking at this imagery. Our moderator, Moment of Lovely, thinks that we should show the JMA forecast again. So let me fetch that for you. And we can all take a look together at that JMA forecast. And it actually, one thing I like about the JMA is that it shows both the storm tracks at the same time until you click on one. So you can see the tracks of both of these systems at the same time. Now it's an absolute mess. You can make out that tropical depression marked B, which is 13W, hasn't yet been named, moving northwards, northwestwards, and then, unfortunately you can't see my mouse either, just south of Okinawa it wants it to go. All the while, Typhoon 11, which of course is Hinnomnor, moves west at first and then drops southwards whilst the depression's up there, and then shoots north. It's a very complicated situation. That's a given. We'll have a look at the model perspective shortly as well. JMA expects that the Typhoon Hinnamnor will remain violent throughout its whole 4-day period and dropping down to very strong on day 5. Which is quite a statement for them to make. To have a violent typhoon for 4 days, which is, I think that must be their top tier.
Mm-hmm.
So
when's the last time we've seen one like this? And what's the longest have we seen it more than 4 days?
Oh God knows, I've no idea. Were there any really strong typhoons through the Japanese islands last year, or do we have to go back to that trio in 2020?
Infa, but that was category 3.
Alright. Here we are again with David's imagery right now. Let's just see if there are any more questions. When will Hinnomnor arrive near the Ryukyu Islands? Well, it's arriving now, depending on where you are. Some parts of the Umami Islands are starting to get a little bit of precipitation. If David could zoom out on your image there, you'll see what there's Okinawa, and you can see how the outer bands are getting rather close now to Okinawa. So that gives you a little idea. And it depends where you are on the Ryukyu Islands. They extend north to south. If you're towards Miyakojima, it'll be a few more days before you'll really feel it. And for the very northern islands, it will be much later on that you'll get the worst, on day 5 or 6. And will Hinnomnor affect Taiwan? We'll be looking at that on the model shortly. You will probably get tropical storm conditions if you're near the northern tip. David?
I was just thinking about the typhoon becoming quasi-stationary, and your reference to the iron, it could be a little bit longer, depending on if it slows, then the impact will be pushed outward further.
Certainly.
But it's looking good.
There's a question there about whether there'll be a Category 6 hurricane in the future. No, I really hope not. Better not. We don't need one.
Moving on.
Hypothetical material.
That's one way of saying it.
Yeah.
In 2027, Hurricane Nathan.
Right, it's not. Let's go to the models then now. Well, mainly the
Yes, I'm
GFS
waiting
model.
with interest.
And take a look at everything that it's got planned on all of the basins out to 16 days.
Southwest Indian.
Now let's remember, when you get towards the 10 to 16 day period, it's pretty wacky. I wouldn't put any stock into it whatsoever. You'll regret it. First of all, 91L, that's this big thing here, very elongated, no sign of a circulation yet. Off it goes, and in a few days, when's this? Could be bordering on a tropical storm by that point there, which is the 3rd of September, morning of. So that's how long? 1, 2, 3 days away. And then continuing there as a tropical storm, what happens next? Moving out towards the longer range, it becomes a hurricane. And now the GFS thinks it will completely miss Bermuda. Bermuda is here. Category 2, shooting off northeastwards. So off it goes. Could become a Category 3 there as well. That's very long range though by this point. And it stalls. Oh, it's still going. Thought it was going to die off there. And it is still active at the end of the 16-day period. After stalling for ages and is halfway between Newfoundland and the Azores.
Interesting.
Well, I never. What about the second system, the one near Africa right now? Let's see what happens to that. There you can see a very broad possible circulation over Cape Verde, and then it continues westwards and actually doesn't become anything on that latest GFS run, not even a depression in my interpretation of that. Looking at the other system that the National Hurricane Center have recently marked, it spawns into a tropical storm quite quickly. This is on the 2nd of September, the morning of. So that is, what day is that? Friday. Friday morning, you're looking at this new tropical storm. What happens to it? It doesn't last very long. And then gets... Oh, it's trying again there. Trying to get a second wind near the Azores. And it succeeds. And it's still active. And off it goes again. And then blows up into... Surely it's not still tropical there. Post-tropical somewhere around here. Very close to Spain, though. And then its remnants go into France.
No, I was looking at that earlier. And
That's a crazy track. Even though it's just a tropical storm.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if that was tropical at that point or not, because I saw it on the GFS run and was a bit confused about.
Let's look at the Gulf over there. Anything? No, that's good. Now let's check the Eastern Pacific. Let's take a look at what happens to that invest that's likely to develop shortly. There it is on the initial output. What happens now? There it is, tries to become a tropical storm. It gets itself together, it's struggling, it's slow, and then there it is, tropical storm strength. And then it really starts to wrap itself together. Becomes a hurricane there, Category 1, and takes an interesting track quite a way out, and then ends in the usual fashion. That second storm that might form behind it, was that first possibly noted? There it is, on the 3rd of September, Saturday. And then what happens? Off it goes, strengthens more quickly along the coast of Mexico, not far off, and a large hurricane there, and a strong one as well, Category 3, onto the Baja California Peninsula. That's around the 8th of September that happens, which is a long way off, and continues all the way up the coast. Not far from the California border, still delivering tropical storm force winds, and then dies. Central Pacific, any sign of Hone? No.
Nope. Thank God.
Thank God.
Now, here's the initialization with Hinnomnor and 13W. They're going to do a big merry dance around each other here. I don't know why the land coastlines are looking all pixelated. They really shouldn't be, but never mind, ignore that. So of course you've got the Typhoon, so easy to spot, and you've got 13W, which the GFS initializes with actually tropical storm force winds, which is interesting. What happens then? Off they go, and their masses get thrown around. Let's watch that again, and this time I'll mark out exactly what happens with those tracks. So it looks like 13W goes all the way around here, orbiting this system, the Typhoon, and the Typhoon stalls around there, loops tighter than that I've depicted. So up they go. The storm 13W is at this point here, whilst the Typhoon is over there, and then it gets shoved over that way towards Taiwan.
Here.
And then the Typhoon starts to get going again once it's out of the way, a distraction, and really gets stronger, much stronger. High-end Category 4, even here, when it's level with the southern coast of Kyushu. when it's level with the same latitude as Shanghai. High-end Category 4 possibly there, continuing northwards and slamming into the southeastern part of South Korea, where a large city, Busan, is located. Still a Category 3 there at that potential landfall. Let's just take a look at that again. Landfall there. How strong is that? 118 miles per hour sustained winds, and the GFS sometimes lowballs it. And over Japan as well, at least Category 2 force winds. Really insane if that was to transpire. It's still a long way out. What timing are we looking at for that? For the onset of tropical storm force winds in Japan, you're looking at, I think that's Sunday. Just checking with local time. Sunday night. For South Korea, early hours of Monday morning. And for the typhoon's full force, it will be at around Monday evening, basically, is what it's currently suggesting. So it's quite a way out, considering we're only at Wednesday morning. And then what's left of it ends up going off south of Kamchatka through the Kuril Islands onto the Aleutian Islands and eventually onto Alaska. That's what happens with Hinnomnor. The other system, of course, gets thrown into the tumble dryer, which is Hinnomnor. And then what happens next? That other storm that people have been curious about, there it is forming only on Monday. So it definitely isn't the system that is currently southeast of Hinnomnor that some people have been suggesting becomes that storm. It really isn't. So there it is, a small, brief system, and that's already getting towards long range. What else happens in the Western Pacific throughout that period? There's a storm in the Gulf of Tonkin there at very long range. Oh, and another one forms just west of Taiwan and gets thrown up. One of those weak storms that move through Taiwan and then into the East China Sea that usually happens once a year. North Indian Ocean, what are you up to? There's a storm there at the very end of that loop. Wouldn't put any faith into that whatsoever. 2 storms in that forecast period out to 16 days.
That'd be the Bay of Bengal, wouldn't it?
And now watch this other area here, the Southwest Indian Ocean system, which GFS is depicting already having tropical storm force winds. Doesn't have a circulation by the looks of things. And then off it goes, gets broader and broader, and then gets swept away. And look, another one on the long range. 7th and 8th of September, GFS wants another one to try its luck in the Southwest Indian Ocean. So that's...
Nathan, I was just going to briefly say I've been keeping an eye on the Himawari 8 satellite imagery for the Southwest Indian, where we're looking on the screen. And I noticed a little bit of rotation yesterday, but the cyclone genesis is still looking good. But it's the Bay of Bengal that's taken me by surprise. Down the southern tip, the Gulf, where the Bay of Bengal starts. But
now take a look at the rainfall expectations from Hinnomnor as well. So it's quite difficult to see all land masses, but you can make out Hinnomnor's track. It goes this way, then it gets stalled there, and then it's up here through there. The land masses, here's Taiwan, some of the Ryukyu Islands, Okinawa, Umami, Kyushu, Honshu, Shikoku. Trying to make things a little bit easier to figure out where everything is. And then look, oops, I didn't mean that one. And then look at the amount of rain, maxing out our table there at 64 inches, which is abominable. Land areas land areas though nowhere near, but still quite high. Taiwan 10 inches there, that's 250 millimeters. Over parts of the Ryukyu Islands, Miyakojima about 8 inches, Okinawa about 8 inches, the Umami Islands about 6 inches, in some of those islands south of Kyushu around 13 inches, and around 11 inches on the eastern coast of Kyushu. Then up towards, let's just turn all that off now, then towards Korea, you can see high amounts there as well, up towards 12 inches, which is a hell of a lot as well. That's 300 millimeters. But what we're really saying is, if you're looking at these land areas here, that 7.6 and the 8.2, those are the land areas. At the moment, the forecast is for the storm to pass in between those land areas, but if it shifts west or east, then what are we going to get? 29 inches in that middle bit at the center there, if the storm's track was to deviate. And that is a phenomenal amount of rain as well. That is 750 millimeters. If the storm happens to stall over a land area though, down here, which it won't, but if it did, that's over 64 inches, which maxed out the scale. 64 inches is about 1,500 millimeters, which is just apocalyptic. Shouldn't happen, but you could still be looking at over 20 inches in some of these areas, which is 500 millimeters. So a lot of rain potential from that storm. Dangerous. Let's just see if there's any other wet areas on the coast of Mexico. A little bit in the next 7 days. You can quite clearly see the track of that soon-to-be hurricane if it happens. But apart from that, there aren't any real wet areas around in the tropics. Wow, what a model run. That's my monologue complete. Let's go back to Daniel's screen and actually with David's screen and the latest with Hinnomnor right now. Any new developments?
Same old, it seems like.
Yep, still looking powerful. Let's check back with some satellite imagery. Oh dear, doesn't want to load satellite imagery. Let's look at this floater Himawari rapid scan. On the geocolor, still looking very good on this visible imagery. Recap on this storm right now, it's still a very powerful 155 mile per hour typhoon. Jtwc are following suit this time. They have gone to 155 miles per hour and a pressure of 924 at their 0Z update, 0 UTC. So they're also siding with this storm has now lost Category 5 status. Still a high-end Category 4, very powerful though.
Do you think we'll see another Cat 5, see an upgrade into Cat 5 or remain a high-range Cat 4?
In this storm?
Yes.
It is still possible when it enters the East China Sea.
Yeah, I was thinking of what you said about that location, so... But people need to be prepared, especially the islands.
100%.
Yep.
Very dangerous times. We're going to be wrapping up this tropical weather bulletin shortly when we do our usual outro. Anything from our team that you would like to say before I cut you guys off for good?
Not really.
That's fine. I mean, we've said a lot over the last 4 hours.
Very
A
tired.
lot more coverage coming up.
Certainly is. I just wanted to give you guys the opportunity. Well, when we go off the air in about just over 5 minutes, we will still have our automated stream running at all times on the Force 13 channel. If you've not seen it yet, just go to our main channel page and it should be there. And you can subscribe to our channel for more updates, which we're doing plenty of. I believe Christian is actually working on one right now with the latest information in the nice packaged condensed format.
Indeed I am.
Yeah, there he is. And then we will probably have more coverage in the evening Japan time, because we obviously want to work around your time zones over there. So I imagine that we'll be going live again in about, I mean, what time is it? About 10 a.m. there now, so we'll be live there again in probably about 10 hours maybe to do a 4-hour live stream or something along those lines. I
Okay,
don't know.
setting my alarm.
Yeah, something like that.
8 o'clock my time. No, 1.
Maybe.
PM.
I don't know.
Oh, no.
But you'll see it scheduled, so always a good idea to subscribe to the channel and you'll see when things
It
get
will be
scheduled.
almost like 7. It'll be like 7 in the
Yeah.
morning for me.
And when we schedule things, we don't go back on them because that would suck.
That would be really bad, yes.
All right then, let's go to our end section on this tropical weather bulletin. Thank you very much to my team for taking part tonight. So,
You're welcome.
Thank you. On August 31st, 2018, we had this situation. Typhoon Jebi, Category 5. And I believe I heard earlier it was the last August Category 5 typhoon that we had. In the East Pac, Norman was a Category 4 and Miriam was out there further out as a Category 1. Tropical Depression 6 had just formed in the far eastern Atlantic. But we're not going to get that today, it doesn't seem. We're going to start making jokes about the Atlantic at this rate. Anyway, let's go to this year. Danielle is the next name on the Atlantic hurricane naming list. In the Eastern Pacific, we might be about to get Javier, but no pre-naming yet. In the Central Pacific, though, we are still waiting for Hone. In the Western Pacific, the next name now is Moifa, and in the North Indian Ocean, it's Sitrang. We've had 50 storms so far in 2022, and this is a hell of a 50th storm so far, Hinnomnor. In the Australian region, the next name on the list is Darian. The Southwest Indian Ocean will kick off with Ashley, and in the South Pacific next up is Harley. Good night, we'll be back again in the next 12 hours. Stay tuned.